Among the piles of corpses, the flames are still raging intensely. From within the fire, he emerges with a blood-stained battle axe resting on his shoulder. His eyes suddenly light up as he asks the knight kneeling on the ground, "How do you like this vibe?" The knight, face contorted in rage, with streaks of blood still running down his face, looks up at him with hollow eyes. "Are you that piece of trash, Ghislain? A trap, you mean? You already knew about my plan." He approaches the man with his axe and replies, "Oh, it's not just that. Not only that, but I even know how many people you have with you. I know who the spies are, and exactly who helped you gather your strength. I've known everything from the very beginning. You're just a puppet," dancing in the palm of my hand. Hearing this, the man's heart completely shatters. "No way. I've always kept an ace up my sleeve." With a crazed look in his eyes, he suddenly looks up and screams like a lunatic. "How could you? How does a useless loser like you dare?" Before the man can even finish his sentence, Ghislain steps in and kicks him square in the face, sending him flying 3 meters back left with no strength to resist. The man shuts his eyes tight, blood streaming down his pathetic face and splattering everywhere. He throws the iron mask to the ground. Ghislain heroically declares, "Go ahead and invade as many times as you want. I will win this battle, and the next one too. I will win every single one of them." He lets out a faint, smug smirk. "Do you know why?" "Because I already know all your plans." Flashback to 1 year ago. Inside a headquarters of the Kingdom of Lutania, near the Podium territory, a young man wakes up with a start from a nightmare, his hands shaking uncontrollably. What the hell just happened? With a face full of panic, he hurriedly touches his neck. His gaze shifts down to his other hand. He blurted out in haste, "Am I still alive?" He thinks to himself, "No way, just a minute ago I was—" Then images of a certain battle flash through his mind again. He had been defeated. The sword he always carried with him had slipped from his grasp and was plunged deep into the ground. Blood continued to stream down his face. He hung his head in despair. "Damn it!" Idun, one of the 7 strongest, a prestigious continental knight, stood before him, mocking him relentlessly. "So it's all going to end like this?" Ghislain Podium, the king of mercenaries, and one of the continent's strongest, the battle is over. "Any last words before you bite the dust?" Knowing that resistance was futile, Ghislain replied with a lingering obsession, "The only regret is that I couldn't finish my revenge." He looked up with a blood-smeared face, yet his eyes still radiated a deep, intense hatred. "Go to hell, you sick bastard! Even as a ghost, I'll never let you off the hook." Idun looked down with a face full of contempt. He burst out laughing at the man's desperation. "Haha, you sure are cocky. You're on the brink of death and you can still talk like that," saying that he pointed his sword straight at Ghislain. "I didn't expect you to be the eldest son of the now-fallen Purium family. You left the family after your older sister died. Didn't you?" Hearing this, Ghislain jumped in shock. "How do you know that when you're from a completely different kingdom?" The man gestured grandly with his hand. "Of course I know. I went through a lot of trouble to track you down, because we were the ones who joined forces with the Delphin family to bring your family down." Ghislain's eyes widened in pure astonishment. He thought to himself in silence. "There are other families behind this as well, besides the Delphin family." "What?" Eden's voice rings out again. "Why are you just standing there like a statue? You're about to kick the bucket anyway. Just face reality." At this moment, his whole body was shaking like a leaf. With eyes full of resentment, he screamed in agony, "I will never forgive you, Idun." As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful, murderous aura flashed in his eyes. With a single swing, he coldly lopped off Ghislain's head. Back to the present. Unable to believe this truth, he ran to a water barrel. Looking at the face reflected in the clear water, his hands kept touching his neck as he blurted out, "But he definitely beheaded me back then. So why is my head still on my shoulders?" He was startled and terrified. Was it all a hallucination? And why does my face look younger too? He looked around in a daze. "Wait, don't tell me I was taken as a guinea pig in some mage's lab. Those arrogant bastards. I'll make them regret letting me live." Suddenly a voice drifted in from outside. "Young master," pulling the tent flap aside and stepping in, was Ricardo, a soldier of Podium. With an urgent expression, he spoke up. "Please come out, I know you're awake." Suddenly a sword lunged from behind, pressing right against his neck. Ricardo began to tremble in sheer panic. At this moment, Ghislain's eyes were full of killing intent as he growled, "I'll let you live, if you answer my questions. But if not..." Ricardo turned pale as a ghost, drenched in sweat as he stammered, "Young master, don't you think this is a bit too much?" Hearing an answer that wasn't what he wanted, Ghislain was completely confused. A thought suddenly occurred to him. Wait, what's with his reaction? Snapped out of his thoughts by the threat, Ghislain immediately asked, "What the hell are you talking about?" Ricardo hastily pushed him away and said angrily, "You were so tilted earlier that you just fell asleep." Ghislain's jaw dropped. "What, I did that?" Ricardo spoke with tears welling up in his eyes, his gloomy face looking quite pathetic. Yes, you woke up from a nice dream, and then forgot everything. Why were you even mad? It was just about leading a group to go hunt some orcs, wasn't it? Gislin stood dazed, frowning as he replied, Orcs? What do you mean I was mad? What kind of nonsense are you spitting? Ignoring his words, Ricardo leaned down and picked up the cloth bag, not forgetting to remind him, pack your things. Everyone is waiting. Hit with one surprise after another, he could only keep blurting out, my things, where the heck are we going? Slinging the bag over his shoulder, Ricardo left in a huff, leaving the young man looking completely bewildered. Where else? To the podium territory, obviously. Gislin snapped out of it and hurriedly grabbed Ricardo's shirt, shouting at the top of his lungs. What, say that again? Going where? With a face full of panic, Gislin cried out, Hasn't the podium territory already fallen? A moment later, Gislin was in a daze, staring at everything unfolding before his eyes. He questioned himself in his mind. Is this really the podium territory? Why is it still perfectly fine? I clearly saw it turn to ashes with my own eyes. Interrupting that train of thought, Ricardo leaned in and whispered in his ear, Wait, are you having a nightmare? Calling your own family a fallen one? If the Count heard that, you'd be kicked out of the family ASAP. Thinking everything was just a dream, he quickly pinched his cheek. Ow! But why does it hurt like hell? This definitely isn't a dream. Standing beside him, Ricardo was just as confused by his actions. The young master's gone totally nuts. Gislin thought to himself, a younger face, and a territory that's still intact. Could it be that I've actually traveled back in time? When I was young, I absolutely hated my family. My childishness and constant tantrums led to massive trouble. Eventually, everyone in the family started avoiding me. I couldn't handle the constant criticism, so I ran away from home in the middle of the night. A few years later, I became a mercenary. I survived countless battles, honed my skills, and finally made a name for myself. Then I returned to the county of Podium to atone for my mistakes. But my family had already been burnt to the ground. On the day I came back, I had lost everything. But now everything is still right here. All the people I love are still here too. Snapping back to reality, he stood there giggling and exclaimed, This is seriously unbelievable. I could literally burst into song right now. Suddenly, Gislin's eyes widened and his brow furrowed. He quickly thought to himself, but it's still too early to celebrate. Ricardo said we're on an orc subjugation mission. Right, there's no way I could forget that day. This is the day when almost everyone in the squad is destined to die. In my past life, I joined the subjugation squad just to try and show off. The scouts reported only 3 orcs. I really thought that someone who had never commanded before, could easily defeat them. But when we arrived, there were over 20 of them. Every single one was massive, with a fighting spirit far beyond any normal human. Most people died because I was too stubborn about wanting to lead. Actually, I could have wiped them out, since orcs have 0 tactics. The real problem is whether those people will trust me, considering I'm just a useless bastard. Interrupting his train of thought. At that very moment, an entire guard shack was sent flying right over his head by something. It crashed right down in front of him. A massive explosion of sound erupted. Wood splinters went flying everywhere. A soldier jaw hitting the floor screamed, It's orcs! The orcs are here. At that moment, the monsters began their assault. They were wielding absolutely massive weapons. The soldiers standing nearby only served to highlight how huge and ferocious they really were. But Gislin was completely caught off guard by this sudden monster attack. Did they really arrive this fast in my past life too? The soldiers were no match for them. One by one, they were being cut down by the monsters. They charged in with the bloodthirsty frenzy. With mouths wide open, blood-curdling scream rang out. Everyone get into formation, don't panic. That was Scoven, the commander of the subjugation squad. Sword in hand, he charged forward with a speed that rivaled any 17-year-old. Just as he reached the monsters, he was blown back. He frowned in shock. Damn it! We let our guard down. We were ambushed before we could even prepare. Their numbers are way higher than what was reported. If this keeps up, we won't be able to hold them off. Suddenly a voice spoke up from behind him. Commander, behind you. An orc was winding up for a massive overhead swing, ready to send the old man to the afterlife. Like a flash, Gislin lunged forward, grabbed his shoulder, and shoved the captain out of harm's way. He turned back to look at the boy with eyes full of gratitude. Young master! Gislin flew in with sword strikes as sharp as a razor, aiming straight for the monster's arm. With one move, the monster's arm was severed, spraying blood everywhere. He stuck the landing looking totally badass. Everyone turned, staring at him in utter amazement. No one expected a party animal like him to easily take an arm and crush the orc's morale. After losing its arm, it started to panic. Spurts of blood sprayed out like underground geysers. A painful end for a short-lived encounter. The orc collapsed heavily onto the ground, letting out a thunderous thud. Dirt and rocks nearby were sent flying in every direction. Having finished off the orc, he watched it lie there motionless. He clicked his tongue. I guess I can't use mana yet. I wish I had returned even earlier. Then he turned back toward Skoven. He walked over and asked, "You're the commander, right?" Still reeling from the boy's display of power, he quickly looked up and stammered, Young master." He held his hand out in front of Skoven and declared, "Give it to me." Still not understanding what was happening, Skoven broke into a cold sweat, eyes wide as he fumbled for words. "Give you what, sir?" He frowned and said firmly, "Give me the command." Hearing this was like a bolt from the blue. His face darkened instantly. Beads of sweat became more visible on his face by the second. He thought to himself, what command? I know he's an idiot, but demanding command, while the soldiers' lives are on the line like this is... After a moment of deliberation, Skoven stood up, ignoring his demand. He turned to walk away, spitting out 2 words. No way, much to Gislin's surprise. As he walked, he spoke up. "Do you think this is some kind of child's play? Even if you are the young master, I can't just hand over the command to you that easily." Gislin watched him go with a sigh. Gislin frowned. His expression turned angry as he thought, this is so annoying. Though I guess I'd do the same thing if some random idiot suddenly showed up and demanded command. Before he could collect his thoughts, another orc charged right at the 2 of them. Its eyes were full of malice. Skoven screamed in panic, "Get back! I'll handle this. You're still too wet behind the ears to be able to lead the army." Hearing the mocking words, Gislin's expression turned murderous. Then I guess there's no other choice. With that, he swung his sword and hurled it straight at the orc. Skoven scrambled to dodge it by a hair's breadth. The old man turned back, grabbed Gislin by the collar, and lifted him up. He wouldn't stop screaming. "What the hell do you think you're doing? You almost killed me." Glancing toward the monster, he was suddenly struck with terror as he thought, what? How could this loser take down an orc with a single move? How is this even real? The monster shrieked in agony, mouth agape and eyes rolling back in its head. Then it slowly collapsed to the ground, with the sword still embedded in its forehead. Still in total shock, Skoven broke into a sweat, his mind racing. How did he hit its weak point? With just one single strike? Interrupting his thoughts, Gislin spoke up. "Skoven, right? Do you know what the most important thing is? When it comes to combat..." He stood there frozen. "Then listen closely. If our army is paralyzed by fear, there's absolutely no chance of winning. That's why we need motivation. Just watch me." Saying that, he dashed toward the dead orc, yanked out his sword, and immediately charged toward the other orcs. With an almost supernatural power, he leaped over the heads of the orc pack. Raising his hand high, he prepared to plunge his sword into some unlucky orc. He dove straight at the head of a monster that had 2 massive tusks, burying his blade deep into its skull. Before the astonished eyes of the entire army, he slowly drew the sword out. Blood spattered all over his face. With a look of pure aggression, he shouted, "Come and get it, you orc bastards!" as he stepped over the monster's corpse. He raised his sword and let out a majestic roar. "I will slaughter every last one of you." Then he charged back into the fray. The monsters stood there completely dazed. Orc after orc fell by his hand. Swift sword strikes, growls of agony, and blood splattered everywhere. An orc's head flew through the air, landing right in front of Skoven. In total horror, he muttered, Am I dreaming? Even as a mana user, I couldn't do anything at all. How can a supposedly weak young master like him pull off something like this? Anyone can see he's exhausted, yet he's using the most efficient movements to dodge every attack, and using his swordsmanship to strike directly at their vital points. He's like a grandmaster who doesn't even need aura, or perhaps even greater than that. Back to the battle. The more he fought, the more he got into the zone. By now he was drenched in blood. He let out a frenzied scream. Is that all you've got? I'm just getting warmed up, come at me. You lot don't even deserve to be called warriors. Provoked by his insults, the orcs swarmed together to chase down Gislin. Ricardo saw the situation was going south. With a worried face, he blurted out, Wait, they're all chasing after the young master? A soldier nearby couldn't keep quiet either, shouting, Is he trying to run away? He turned toward Skoven, who was standing there in a daze. Ricardo yelled, Commander. Ignoring Ricardo's call, Skoven was deep in thought. What on earth are you thinking? Diving into a pack of orcs. To draw their attention was fine, but why is he running away now? And is that towards the cliff edge? He was startled by that bold realization. With a look of pure dread, he cried out, Wait, it really is the cliff. Don't tell me. Realizing the plan, he immediately ordered the troops to form a shield wall to follow him. The orcs were still hot on Gislin's heels. He was running for his life. As he ran, he thought to himself, Skoven is a seasoned commander. He must have realized what my plan is. Even though he'd rather just hack them to pieces, with his current physical condition, he wouldn't be able to hold out. Regardless, this was still within his ability to manage. Lured close to the edge of the cliff, the orcs suddenly seemed to realize something was wrong. They startled and looked back. Skoven's reinforcements were right behind them. Every one of them wore a face of pure fury. Seeing his plan was halfway to success, Gislin gave a satisfied smirk. Good job. Then he leaped into the air. With a cocky look, he shouted, "Get 'em, boys!" Seeing the moment had arrived, Skoven immediately understood. He bellowed with authority, ordering, "All soldiers push these orcs off the cliff." As soon as he finished the command, every soldier charged forward. Caught off guard, the orcs could only howl in terror. With the momentum on their side, the army quickly forced the entire pack of monsters off the cliff edge. The monsters' screams echoed through the air, followed by the sound of massive impacts below. The ground was covered in white mist. Watching all the orcs fall to their doom, the entire army cheered in victory. "We did it. We killed every single one of those monsters." When they couldn't see Gislin anywhere, they scrambled to find him. Skoven spotted something and leaned over the cliff edge. Looking worried, he kept shouting, "Young master, are you all right?" He was currently hanging halfway down the mountainside, clinging to his sword, which was wedged deep into the rock. He quickly reached out. "Here, take my hand." But the weight of his own body was becoming too much to bear. His fingers were slowly slipping. Only 3 fingertips were left holding onto the sword. He muttered under his breath, I can't hold on any longer." He slowly fell while everyone watched, in absolute shock. He drifted into a dreamlike state of consciousness. Vague fragments of Elena's memories flashed through his mind. "Gislin, Mom is gone. Thank you for everything. What's been up with you lately? You're such a meanie. Let's just go together." The scene shifted to a certain room. Opening his eyes, Gislin found a wet towel on his forehead, placed there by someone to break his fever. His face looked pale and exhausted. A spacious room came into view. He couldn't help but feel bewildered. Looking down at his hands, he croaked out in a weak voice, "I'm alive. Looks like they saved me." He forced himself to sit up. He clutched his head in his hands, wondering, was it all just a dream? His entire body felt like it had been pummeled. He winced in pain. "My whole body hurts like hell. This is definitely the price for pushing myself past my limits, damn. Anyway, at least I'm still kicking." Suddenly, a woman's voice called out, "Young master!" The door opened and in walked a girl with a curvaceous and seductive figure, dressed in a maid's uniform. She gave a gentle smile and continued, "You're finally awake." Gislin stared at her in utter disbelief. He whispered, "Belinda." She carried a basin of water to the table and sighed. "Do you have any idea how worried I was? I told you already, didn't I? You should have let the soldiers handle those orcs." Before she could even finish, driven by some impulse, he rushed over and hugged her tightly, looking frantic. Startled, she cried out, "What are you doing? Did I do something wrong?" He quickly replied, "No, not at all. I'm just so glad to see you again." His mind began to drift back into his memories. Belinda had been his private tutor. She had been by his side ever since he was a little kid. But after his clan was reduced to ashes and she went missing, he had never seen her again until now. Only an old tattered shoe she had dropped remained. He just never expected to cross paths with her again, under these circumstances. Interrupting his train of thought, Belinda spoke up. "We see each other every single day, so why are you so hyped to see me?" He frowned, thinking to himself, maybe I should just tell her the truth. Quickly pushing her back, Gislin summoned his courage and spoke. "Listen closely. Podium is about to face a massive catastrophe." She gasped and blurted out, What on earth are you talking about?" With a dead serious look in his eyes, he continued, "The truth is I've literally come back from the dead." In total contrast to his gravity, Belinda burst out laughing and replied, "Yeah, sure. Those orcs almost killed you after all." Ignoring Gislin's strange expression, she nonchalantly turned back to fold the bedding, looking quite annoyed. "Do you even realize how much danger you were in?" Gislin was startled and tried to explain. "What? No, that's not what I meant at all." She immediately went into savage mode, hands on her hips, and yelled out in frustration, "If you keep looking for trouble like this, you're going to end up behind bars. You keep trying to play commander, and that's exactly why this kind of stuff happens. Do you have any idea how worried sick I was? If only you knew." As she continued her storm of verbal roasting, Gislin could only stay silent, thinking, she doesn't believe me. I guess that approach didn't work. After chewing him out for a while, her voice finally softened. "Honestly, what would we have done if you were injured for the festival?" Hearing this, he suddenly felt a jolt of realization. After thinking for a moment, he exclaimed, "The festival," she explained gently. "Did you forget? Lady Elena has been looking forward to the festival day, just so she could go with you. It's a perfect chance for the two of you to get close." Holding a photo of them together on the table, Gislin thought, "Right, there was always a festival held around this time of year. In my past life, I never had time to enjoy it, because of all those horrific experiences." Snapping out of his thoughts, Gislin asked her, "How much longer until the festival?" She rested her chin on her hand and thought for a moment. "Let's see, the festival kicks off next week, so you've got about half a week to get ready." He fell into deep thought again. Half a week after the day my life changed. The memory of Elena continued to haunt him. In 1 week, Elena will die. Interrupting his train of thought, a voice drifted in from outside the door. Brother, are you in there? Turning his head, he saw Elena peeking tentatively through the door. Her face was full of shyness. Suddenly, he rushed over and pulled his little sister into a tight hug. She looked completely caught off guard. Belinda, standing nearby, was also stunned. In a panic, Elena looked annoyed and frowned, snapping at him. What is this even? What's going on with you? Ghislaine, with a face full of sorrow, said, I missed you so much, sis. Hearing that, Elena immediately shoved him away. He stumbled back toward the maid. Elena kept yelling at him. Get off me, you scared the crap out of me! He clutched his chest in pain with a stunned look, thinking, what kind of strength is this? Was she always this strong even as a kid? Elena brushed the dust off herself. She looked at him with suspicion and asked, Belinda told me to come over. What kind of game are you playing now? You think doing this makes everything okay? Ghislaine looked confused and blurted out, what makes what okay? Then she started reminding Ghislaine of all the terrible things he had done to her. Hey, you're annoying, so get lost. Just watching you breathe pisses me off. Back to the present. Elena glared at him angrily and asked, have you already forgotten all of that? Wait, I actually said that. He rubbed his head and scratched his ear, thinking I really wasn't close to Elena in the past. I was such a total jerk. With a face full of regret, he spoke up. Look, I'm really sorry. Hearing those words, which she had never, ever heard from him before. Both of them couldn't believe their ears. Belinda quickly spoke up. He apologized for real. Elena was also stunned by this scene. She blurted out, I heard you got jumped by an oversea. Did you get hit in the head or something? Giselle shouted back in anger. No, I'm seriously fine. Why are you two saying I got attacked? Suddenly, his whole body felt like it was under assault. White flashes of light, like bolts of lightning, kept sparking across his body. He winced and grimaced in agony. He quickly dropped to his knees, shaking uncontrollably. Elena still hadn't a clue what was going on. She rested her chin on her hand. Thinking, then exclaimed, Let's see. Oh, right. You're fine 1 second. Then you're back to being unconscious. The two of them just stood there mocking him, even as he knelt on the ground, clutching his stomach. With sorrowful eyes, his expression suddenly fell as he thought to himself, everyone is exactly how I remember them. Why did my past self waste so much time on such useless things? At the ceremony that day, I refused to go with Elena. Having to take the fall for the expedition team made me so furious, and that was the last time I ever saw her. Her body? Elena was later found torn to pieces, along with her guards. I should have been with her. Interrupting his train of thought, there was a loud banging on the door. Can we come in? The door opened to reveal two guards, Yama and Philip. The two of them looked completely shocked. Yama spoke up. Oh, so this is where you were, Lady Elena? She suddenly approached the two of them. They had an annoyed look as they spoke. What's up? I thought I told you two to wait outside. Yama rubbed his head and blurted out, Sorry, the servants wanted the lady to review the festival preparations. Ghislaine turned around in a panic. What the hell? Why are they asking Elena? Belinda, standing behind, looked annoyed and spoke up. Don't you know anything? It's because you spend all day partying. I had no idea Perium was so short-staffed that a young lady actually has to work. Hearing those reproaches, Ghislaine was speechless. He could only mutter a sound, then sank into his thoughts. Are we really that short on people? I mean, I didn't care about anything back then, so obviously I didn't know. Just then, Elena's voice rang out. Anyway, you all take care now. I'm heading out. Feeling guilty about his past behavior, Ghislaine rushed forward. Elena, let me give you a hand. Hearing her brother's words, she froze, a look of panic slowly crossing her face. Even Belinda couldn't hide her surprise. He actually wants to help. Elena then blurted out, Did you really get hit in the head? The scene shifts to the festival grounds. Everyone is busy hustling to get everything ready. Elena's voice could still be heard echoing. You said you'd help. Just go away. You're standing there scaring everyone. With that, she hurriedly pushed him away. With a stunned and distorted expression, Ghislaine could only complain, Is this how you treat someone who wants to help you? Ignoring his whining, Elena raised her voice. The best way you can help is to stay still, and just not cause any trouble. Her hands kept pushing against Ghislaine's face. He thought to himself, Elena's body was found near the slums, far away from the festival site. Someone must have lured or forced her there. To prevent this from happening, I need to know who is coming and going from the city. Interrupting his train of thought, a pair of feet approached. A voice kept shouting, Young master! He turned around with a look of surprise. Ghislaine blurted out, Is that Mr. Focus? He quickly rushed over to him, not forgetting to wipe the beads of sweat dripping down his face. He cried out, Oh my God, you're all right. Suddenly he stepped forward. He placed both hands on his shoulders, trembling. It's Focus, your humble servant. I rushed to you the moment I heard about those orcs. Ghislaine quickly snapped back. Can we just end this conversation right here? Hearing those words, Elena looked amused. She cheered, "Perfect timing, old man. He's been acting super weird since he woke up. Please just take him back to his room." Gislin was startled, thinking to himself, "Oh boy, this old geezer is getting in my way again. There's no other choice. I'll be able to figure out more about what happens next week." As he thought this, he covered his face in frustration. Regaining his composure, he spoke calmly. "Old man, there's an abandoned training ground. Inside the city, right? Take me there." He replied in surprise. "Yes, the training ground, but why, sir?" "Stop asking questions, I just want to get some practice in." Standing before a sturdy building, the old man said, "Right this way." Astonished by the scene before his eyes, he thought, "Oh, holy cow. This is way different from what I imagined. This place is perfect for my training. I never saw anything like this when I was a mercenary." Thinking this, he took a few steps to look around. The old man spoke with a solemn face. "We kept it maintained just in case you ever needed it, because I was certain that you would come here one day." Hearing this, he froze and blurted out in shock, "Wait, did he do this in my past life too?" He stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder. He continued, "I need to stay alive. Death seriously sucks." The man turned and replied, "Yes, you're acting like you've already died once." He turned back, smirking. "Look at you being all sharp. I died and came back. Anyway, you can head back now." "Old man, I'm starting my training." He bowed low, showing respect. "I think you should stop capping, sir. I will wait outside." Watching him leave, he sank back into his thoughts. "I used to treat everyone as an enemy, but back then I was so shallow. 1 week from now, the one responsible for Elena's death is the neighboring lord. Because of that, Podium went to war and fell into ruin. Elena's death was the tipping point for the clan's downfall, meaning I have to settle this once and for all." Snapping out of his thoughts, he knew he first needed to get stronger. Unfortunately, time was not on his side, but at the very least he had to master his mana. With that, he sat down and began his training. Mana particles are an extraordinary energy that can help humans transcend their limits. Everyone says sensing mana is the hardest part, but he had already mastered it. Even in the heat of battle, he could connect with the mana particles in the air and condense them into a core. For someone like him, who had endured tens of thousands of battles, creating a mana core was a piece of cake. But if that was all, he never would have become one of the 7 strongest. With the method, from the magic book he had acquired, and the natural mana core of a human, he could create 2 or even 3 cores, establishing a link between the cores to create an explosive source of energy. It seemed he had exceeded his limits. He was severely injured. His face contorted in pain as he repeatedly coughed up blood. He collapsed, propping up his weak body with both hands while gasping. Currently, 3 links were his absolute limit. Even though he could create 5 in the past, although this method could generate a massive burst of energy for a short duration, it required sacrificing a vast amount of mana. That was the reason he lost to Iden in his previous life. The knights attacked just as he ran out of mana. If it had been a fair fight, he probably would have won. It was originally an unstable technique. But for now, this is enough. He is still young and has plenty of time to sharpen his skills. He is determined to defeat Idun this time. And that bastard behind the Delvin clan too, the one who destroyed our territory. Scene changes to 1 week later, the day of the festival. He is walking proudly on his way to the festival grounds. The moonlight glows faintly, illuminating the entire sky. Elena spots a familiar figure approaching. Startled, her eyes widen in shock. She stands with her arms crossed and exclaims, "Whoa! Are you really coming here? What's going on? You never do stuff like this." He teases her back. "Well, as a citizen of Podium, the least I could do is show up for the festival." Glancing at him, she continues, "You are acting really sus lately. I heard you've been grinding hard at training all week." He puts his hand on his neck, eyes tightly shut, and sighs. Is there something wrong? With the air of a knight family actually practicing, the sassy younger sister refuses to let him off the hook. She shuts him down immediately. "Well, I've never seen you care about any of this before. You were the one who told Dad it's a drag and that you wanted to become Lord right away." Her words hit him like a direct blow, making him tremble slightly. She lets out a joyful laugh, leaving her clueless brother standing behind. She doesn't stop teasing him as she goes. "Anyway, I like you better this way." Looking up at the sky, her true feelings gradually emerge. She sighs softly. It's like the old you is finally back. Her words cut deep into Gislin's heart, leaving him lost in thought. He realized a few things after this past week. Because his actions have changed, people's impressions of him and the future have started to shift. Major events still seem to be the same, but it's hard to judge his impact on the smaller details. His mission is to make the best use of his future knowledge. He needs to handle every situation that arises with maximum efficiency. Elena quickly grabbed his hand and pulled him along, leaving him with a dazed look on his face. Today was a wonderful day for her. Honestly, it had probably been a long time since she'd felt this happy. She kept shouting, "This is so much fun! Stopping at a quiet little corner, Elena sat down on the steps. Her face suddenly turned somber as she spoke. But it's kind of a mid just like every other year. There's nothing new this time around. Suddenly thoughts began to flash through Gislin's mind. The festival is almost over, yet nothing has happened yet. Is it because I've stayed by Elena's side? Just as the thought crossed his mind, a familiar voice spoke up. A guard stepped in front of Elena and said, "Would you like to see somewhere else, my lady?" Our friends mentioned, "There's a new event being held out there." Hearing about something new, Elena was instantly surprised. Really? The man then reached out and took Elena's hand, leading her away while she beamed with excitement. Gislin stood there, his eyes burning with rage as he thought Jama and Philip, Elena's 2 escort knights. They were supposedly her most trusted knights, having protected Elena since she was a child. In his past life, they were killed while defending her. So it was you traitors to our clan? After wandering aimlessly for a while, they finally arrived. Jama pointed ahead, acting faintly surprised, and announced, "We're here," but all that stood before them was an empty lot. Elena stepped forward, looking around in confusion, scanning from right to left. With a disappointed look, she blurted out, "What the hell is this? Is there even anything here, you guys? Are you sure there's supposed to be a show? In a dump like this?" Philip quickly rubbed his head and scratched his hair, replying, They probably just haven't finished setting up yet." While the others were bickering over there, Gislin suddenly realized something. He kept staring at the wooden barrels stacked along the walkways. An idea struck him. At first glance, this just looked like a deserted street. But if you look closely, you'll see those barrels are placed to block the exits. Cutting through his train of thought, Elena angrily dragged him away. She kept shouting, "Let's go already!" Seeing the plan about to go south, Jama panicked and called out, "My lady, since we're already here, don't you want to see the performance?" Elena flatly refused, replying, "No thanks. I have no interest in watching a show in a place like this." Gislin turned to look at his sister in shock. "Have you been practicing some secret martial arts? Why are you so strong?" Suddenly, Jama stepped out to block her path. Caught off guard, she bumped right into him. Then his voice slowly drifted out, "My lady?" She looked up to see a terrifying expression. His eyes had turned white and vacant, eyebrows arched high, and a red aura began to emanate from his body. He growled as he continued, "Please wait a little longer, my lady. What's the big rush?" Seeing his bizarre behavior, Elena panicked and spoke with a trembling voice. "What is wrong with you people?" Philip stood behind her, scratching his head for a moment before exclaiming, "Oh boy, I didn't mean to scare you." Then his face suddenly turned sinister. He repeatedly cracked his knuckles with loud pops. "It's just that someone very high-key wants to meet you, that's all." Elena was utterly terrified. By now, beads of sweat were rolling down, drenching her small, delicate face. She asked in a weak voice, "Who is it?" In the distance, a pair of feet approached. A man in a cowboy outfit, along with 2 attendants, was drawing near. His name was Frank. As he got closer, he revealed an ugly face with patches of stubble, long, graying hair and black shades like some street fortune teller. He spoke in a gravelly voice, "Impressive, your workflow is certainly clean." Seeing Frank arrive, Jama stepped forward and replied, "Of course. We have delivered the lady as promised. So let's wrap up this deal right here." Frank looked at Gislin, appearing surprised. Isn't that the eldest son of the Podium family? I don't recall a bonus for bringing him here." Following up, Jama raised his hand to explain, "I'll hand him over for free. The fool followed us without a clue, unaware that he's walking straight into his own grave." Knowing exactly what was coming, Gislin spoke up confidently, "Jama, so you really sold us out? Do you honestly think you can just walk away from this?" Hearing that tone, Jama turned around with a smug grin. "Why don't you worry about your own skin first? All we have to do is hide somewhere far away and we're golden. We're tired of this so-called promised land. We'd just end up being tormented by those savages anyway. I'm sure there are plenty of others besides us who are dying to get out of Podium." As soon as he finished speaking, Gislin swung his sword in a lightning-fast motion, slicing his body in 2. Finishing in a cold badass pose, he left everyone present, staring with their mouths agape in horror. Jama's body split apart and collapsed to the ground, making a sickening sound. With his sword still in hand, he stood there and muttered, "At the very least, they would never have sold us out, like you did." He turned to Philip with a gaze full of murderous intent. "Am I wrong?" By then, Philip had grabbed Elena, holding her tightly against him. He screamed in pure terror, "That idiot Jama! How could a knight lose to an amateur like him?" Before he could finish his sentence, Gislin threw his sword, piercing it straight into his head. Blood splattered everywhere as he died a miserable death. Seeing him lying motionless on the ground, Elena rushed over and hugged her brother tightly, still visibly shaken by the ordeal. Frank's guards, witnessing what had just happened, all exclaimed in disbelief, "Is that really the Podium family's eldest son? I thought he had 0 combat experience. Combat or even basic training for that matter." Frank then quickly spoke up. Judging by his appearance, that's spot on. But then he thought to himself, even though they let their guard down, he instantly took out 2 knights, with an attack fueled by mana. He returned to Elena's side. She was still trembling uncontrollably, continuously crying out, "Big brother, what on earth is going on?" After thinking for a moment, Ghislain made a decision. He swung his hand and knocked her out. He gently laid her on the ground and said, "Just lie here and rest, Elena." He turned his face back to Frank's group, his eyes burning with resentment. They slowly closed in on him. The man's voice rang out again. "Thanks for doing our dirty work for us. Son of the Podium House, you're quite different from the rumors. We were planning on taking care of those 2 ourselves." With a Cuban cigar in his mouth, he gloated further. "Have you been hiding your true skills all along?" Walking toward the guard's corpse, Ghislain retrieved his sword. He shot back, "What the hell does that have to do with you?" He glanced back at them, thinking, 3 left, huh? The 2 on the sides are no big deal. But the guy in the middle? He's radiating an amount of mana. That's on a whole different level. I need to end this quickly. Snapping out of his thoughts, surges of deep purple light appeared all over him, enveloping his entire body. He then asked, "Who ordered this hit?" Frank clicked his tongue arrogantly. "Geez, do dead men really need to know that?" Then Ghislain slowly raised his sword before his face, his gaze sharp as a razor. "I knew you wouldn't talk easily, but you'll be singing a different tune soon enough." One of the lackeys eagerly asked Frank, "Should we take his head, boss?" Frank replied sternly, "No, take him alive, then break all his limbs, so he won't be able to do anything except lose his mind. He needs to writhe in agony, just to match that pretty face of his, right?" Finishing his sentence, Frank flashed a savage, twisted grin. At the same time, 2 lackeys with murderous looks drew their swords and lunged at Ghislain. They shouted in unison, "On it, boss," prepared for the strike. Ghislain whipped out a firecracker and hurled it straight at them. One of them sputtered in confusion, "A firecracker?" Then in the very next heartbeat, Ghislain rushed in to send him to the afterlife. With a single piercing thrust, the other one managed to dodge and barked, "Cheap tricks like that? Take this." He swung his sword, aiming a strike at Ghislain's lower body. But thanks to his massive main character energy, Ghislain easily parried the blow. He then snatched the sword away with his bare hands as the thug stared in pure shock. There was no time for any last words. A powerful slash was delivered straight to the neck, sending his head flying. Seeing his subordinates defeated so easily, Frank finally stopped sitting on the sidelines. He lunged forward for a sneak attack from behind Ghislain, but with that same incredible aura, he countered it effortlessly. Stunned by his prowess, Frank's face went pale with panic. He asked himself, he blocked my strike from that angle. That was supposed to be a perfect backstab, not giving him any room to overthink it. Ghislain pressed the attack. He swept his blade toward the man's groin. But Frank was no pushover either. He leaped into the air, dodging the move. Ghislain kept the pressure on. This time he aimed for the neck. He swung his sword, slicing the cigar right out of Frank's mouth. A flash of light grazed his neck. He let out a delighted, sinister chuckle and said, "Well, that was a surprise. If it wasn't for my mana, my head would be rolling right now." Ghislain was suddenly taken aback, thinking to himself, "What the hell is this? How is he still alive after a direct hit to the neck? Did he concentrate mana around his neck to tank the damage?" The man's bitter voice rang out again. "I don't know where a kid your age learned such bizarre swordsmanship, but you're going to die right here today." Hearing those utterly delusional words, Ghislain broke into a mocking smirk. Noticing the off-putting attitude, the man wondered, "What the hell? You dare laugh at me while he was distracted?" Ghislain seized the opening to strike. He spun 360 degrees and delivered a kick straight to the man's face. Streaks of blood splattered across the air. Despite taking the hit, he still tried to act all cool and edgy. He slowly raised a hand to adjust his fedora, smirking with twisted satisfaction. "Didn't I tell you already? With that pathetic amount of mana, you can't touch me." His joy was short-lived. Suddenly, he collapsed to the ground, starting to cough up blood. His whole body trembled violently. He held up his hand, staring at the dripping blood, thinking to himself, what the power behind that last attack was different. There's no way he could pierce my reinforcement with just that level of skill. Ghislain stepped closer to him. Only then did he speak up. "I never would have thought. There was a real culprit behind Elena's death. So it was you all along." At that moment, surges of fiery red light flared up and enveloped Ghislain's body, accompanied by a roar filled with resentment. "Brace yourself, third core release." Witnessing him break through to a new realm, Frank kept screaming, "What the hell? How can you boost your mana that much?" Not giving him another chance to speak, Ghislain lunged forward again. Gripping his blades firmly in both hands, he slashed at Frank with both swords, but the man managed to block them once more. But even after that exchange, his hands and feet were shaking like a leaf. He quickly blurted out, "No way. How can my hands be trembling just from blocking those hits? Even if he's drawing out mana, there has to be a damn limit to it." I've never heard of a method to boost mana to such an extreme level before. At that moment, his sword began to fracture. Audible cracks resonated one after another. Refusing to let the battle drag on any longer, Ghislain charged in with an overwhelming strike. A single slash shattered the man's sword into pieces. His face was contorted in pure panic, but there would be no more opportunities for him to sit and think things through. That slash tore right through his body. Blood sprayed out violently, completely coating him. To ensure no more surprises, Ghislain landed a final decisive blow. He drove his sword straight into the man. All Frank could do was scream, letting out wretched cries of agony. Still not satisfied, Ghislain added a forceful shove, pinning him firmly against the wall. He spoke coldly. I believe we were in the middle of a conversation. Who's the one that ordered you to do this? Suddenly a small dagger appeared in Frank's hand. In a spiteful, gloating tone, he spat. I'm not going down that easily. At the very least, I'm taking the podium lady to hell with me. Saying that, he moved his hand to throw the dagger at Elena. Luckily, however, the main character's plot armor was just too strong. Using some sort of mystic technique, he used threads of red spider silk to bind the man's hand tight. Don't bother, it's useless. Answer my question and then I'll pull the sword out. But Frank continued to struggle defiantly. He wondered, are these threads made of mana? Why can't I move? When the hell did he set this up? Seeing his opponent still refusing to talk, Ghislain spoke up again. Surely someone with your level of martial skill, and you'd naturally know how to heal your own wounds. But what happens if I destroy your mana core? Only then did he panic, stammering, what? Not wanting to waste any more time. Ghislain immediately used his mana-absorbing blade to crush the man's core. He screamed out in utter hopelessness. My mana is dispersing. Are you freaking insane? Just one slip-up and the mana backlash will blow this whole area to kingdom come. Do you have a death wish? Ghislain stared him down coldly. With a face full of confidence, he replied, that only happens to people with no skill. As for me, I can handle it just fine. At that moment, across his entire body, golden sparks like bolts of lightning began snaking through every fiber of his being. Ghislain thought to himself, this guy wasn't kidding. Am I really going to die? Suddenly, the man had a change of heart. He screamed in agony, it's Count Desmond. He's the one who ordered this. He continued. He needed an excuse to start a war against House Podium and House Degas. But Ghislain, with a stern expression, just replied, is that so? What took you so long to spill? So it was Desmond after all. He began to reflect. In my past life, this kind of dirty work was always pawned off to families allied with the Duke. Duke Delphin? How dare you orchestrate such nonsense without any backup plan? After his thoughts settled, Ghislain continued to interrogate him. So that's the reason you wanted to kill Elena? The man gasped out a weak yes. The moment he finished speaking, Ghislain plunged the sword deep into him right up to the hilt. His eyes bulged and his brow furrowed in a mask of pure resentment. With his dying breath, he yelled, what are you doing? This is completely different from what you said before. Ghislain gave a dismissive laugh and remarked, so freaking what, you moron? You've murdered countless people, yet now you're scared to die. Suddenly, the man leaned his face in close to Ghislain, hissing through his teeth. Nothing changes even if you kill me. I've already finished my business with Digas. Do you really think anyone's going to believe a little brat like you? Because of someone like you, Podium will be destroyed by war. Ghislain reached out, grabbed the man's face, and whispered back. Let me tell you something. I was reborn after I died. So this time, things will be different. Having said that, Ghislain ended the conversation with a fatal strike. The man's body was blown to smithereens. Torrents of blood splattered right in front of him. At the same time, the festival fireworks were launched into the sky. Sparkling lights illuminated the entire horizon. Suddenly, his body felt completely drained of strength. He collapsed onto the ground. He kept raising his hand to wipe away the blood trickling from his mouth, muttering, damn it! When I was the king of mercenaries, detonating 3 cores was a piece of cake. I can't go down just from this. He looked up toward a room in front of him, dragging his battered body to open the door and enter. Inside, a scene of total chaos unfolded. Broken furniture was scattered everywhere. 2 corpses were completely covered by sacks. As he moved closer, thoughts flashed through his mind. In my past life, they found another body next to Elena. Based on what that guy just said, looking down at the corpse lying there, he blurted out, it's Diggett's son. It looks like he was killed along with his escort, so this is how they silenced them and framed them for Elena's murder. Once this comes to light, the war will... Acting on impulse, he reached down to his waistband and pulled out a firework he had prepared beforehand. He thought to himself, I have to destroy the evidence right now. I won't let things play out according to your plan. A short while later, he left the area carrying Elena on his back. The room had already been engulfed by raging flames. On a tree branch not far away, a mysterious figure stood watching the 2 siblings. Suddenly, the silhouette of the mysterious person began to fade, vanishing into thin air. Scene changes to another location. taking the spotlight. A mysterious subordinate is kneeling on the floor. Surrounding him are several people sitting down. Around the tables arranged in a circle, voices began to rise. It was a total fail. We sent Knights and Frank over there, the absolute best we had. You couldn't even take care of one little girl. Did you let your guard down because you thought it'd be a walk in the park? The subordinate, his face twisted in a mix of fear and anger, blurted out, "Sir, it was all because of Ghislaine Podium." The figures at the head of the table seemed taken aback by that name. The room erupted into whispers. "Ghislaine! That useless loser from the north, him!" "Tisk!" One of them clicked their tongue, berating him with a furious expression. "You know damn well that Ghislaine is just a good-for-nothing piece of trash. Are you seriously using him as an excuse?" Seeing the backlash, the subordinate tried to justify himself. "He's nothing like the reports or the rumors. It's like he's turned into a completely different person. But we've already wrapped things up with House Digas, so we don't have to worry about triggering a territorial war. Please just give me one more shot." "Shut up. You couldn't even gather enough intel on a single kid. Do you have any idea how much this has set us back? You can't finish one simple task, and yet you're begging for another chance." Then a unanimous chant erupted, "Wipe him out." Just then, the silhouette of a mysterious figure, seated on the throne in the main hall, slowly began to emerge. A commanding voice spoke up. "What a racket. So what kind of chance do you want? And how do you plan to take it?" In a panicked state, the subordinate stammered, "Sir, I will take down Ghislaine Podium by setting up a duel. It'll look completely natural. I already have someone in mind." The men at the table spoke up again. "Who is it, Khan Loads? He's famous for a swordsmanship that relies on pure power. Despite his youth, he's a symbol of strength. I can confidently say that. No one in the north can match his power. Plus, Khan is related to Ghislaine. We won't even have to force a meeting." The mysterious figure spoke, "Fine, but if you fail again, there won't be a next time." Scene changes to the podium training grounds. Old Man Focus called out, "Excuse me, young master. It's time to eat." Suddenly, something zipped through the air, wrapping tightly around the sword resting at his feet, giving him a total heart attack. Before he could even catch his breath, the sword was yanked away, flying through the air. It was Ghislaine training. The sword was now firmly in his hand. Thin threads were still coiled around the hilt. He swung it around a few times. Abruptly, he stopped and muttered, "That should be enough. Let's call it a day." The old man hurried over and spoke up. "Forgive me, young master. You were so locked in that I didn't want to kill the vibe." Ghislaine smiled and replied, "Oh, it's fine, Mr. Focus." The man looked up at him and asked, "How did you just do that?" "The way you just pulled that sword up." Ghislaine casually replied, "Oh, you mean this? It's just mana. I'm using it like a string." He closed his eyes and thought to himself, "In my past life, I used this all the time. But with my current skill level, I'd have to detonate my core to use it like I used to, because I'm low-key lacking mana. But if I only create a single thread to save mana, I can still make it work, even without much mana." Interrupting his train of thought, the old man spoke up, "Well, I've been training with mana for a long time, but I've never seen anything like that." After saying that, he wondered to himself, just a few days ago, he wasn't even using mana. He was just training solo. How can he suddenly come up with an idea to use mana like this? "Hey, Mr. Focus, is there something you want to say?" Actually, I just came to tell you this." "What is it?" He bowed before him and said, "Thank you for protecting the young lady." Ghislaine replied in surprise, "Say what?" "You're thanking me. She's my sister. It's just what I do." The scene cuts to a few days later. The festival has been put on hold. The reason an escort knight plotted to sell the young lady off. Inside a certain room, Elena sat with her chin resting on her hand. With her other hand, she kept tapping on the table, creating rhythmic clicking sounds that were quite catchy. Looking gloomy, she spoke up, "Everyone thinks I'm capping when I tell them that you were the one who saved me. You really should say something to them." Sitting opposite her, Ghislaine sighed. "It's all right, Elena. No matter what I say, they won't believe it anyway." At that moment, Belinda was shaking with rage. With a scowl on her face, she blurted out, "Drama and Philip were the ones who betrayed you. Weren't they? Those lowlifes. I knew they were creeps all along." Ghislaine looked at his sister, lost in deep thought. "Since Elena is alive, I've managed to delay the outbreak of war. But they definitely won't give up. I can't keep stopping them all by myself forever. I need to build an empire and elite army." Interrupting his train of thought, a maid pushed a food cart toward them. She spoke up, "Pardon me." With that, she approached them. She placed a dish in front of Ghislaine. He turned to reach for a spoon, his mind still racing. Perhaps I should study politics more seriously to make that happen. Looking down, there was only a single piece of bread neatly placed on the plate. His eyes widened in shock. He quickly looked up at Belinda and asked, "Wait, why? Are we eating dessert first?" She replied with a wry smile, "Dessert. You know exactly what kind of situation we're in." Suddenly, a loud shout echoed from outside. The noise shattered the peaceful atmosphere. It was a flabby, obese man. He was yelling at the top of his lungs, "Compensate us for the damages caused by canceling the festival." Behind him was a mob of people, every single one of them looking aggressive. The shouts continued to ring out, "Compensate us! Compensate us! Compensate us!" Then someone stepped toward the iron gate, repeatedly pointing their finger at the guard, yelling, "Get out here! You guys are swimming in cash while we suffer, right?" The guard replied in a panic, "Please, please calm down." Hearing the commotion, Ghislaine rushed to the window and exclaimed, "What the hell is going on?" Belinda, standing behind him, spoke up fearfully. "I knew they'd react like this." She sighed and burst into tears. "You see, our district has many merchants. They make their living off the profits from this festival. Last year was good enough for them, but this year, because the festival was canceled after just one day, they're devastated." After hearing this, Ghislaine frowned deeply. Beads of sweat began to form as he muttered, "Is our district's situation really this dire?" Glancing down at the crowd, he thought to himself, This isn't good. Their rage will only grow if we don't do something for them." Suddenly, he turned to the old man. "Mr. Focus, what are the guards doing? Send them down to settle that crowd right now." "Sir, we don't have any guards left." Ghislaine gasped in shock. "What?" The old man's face darkened as he said sadly, "Most of them were deployed to the monster forest for reconstruction work, but they were ambushed by the orcs." Ghislaine thought, "Damn it, they all went there. We're basically in a constant state of war because of the barbarians in the north. On the other hand, there's the monster forest, where monsters could pop out at any moment. No money, no soldiers. What a total mess." Suddenly snapping out of it, he hurried over and put his arm around Belinda's shoulder. "Come here, let's talk for a second. You're our money manager, right? Use that cash to appease the merchants." Her eyes went wide as she blurted out, "Money? There's no money left, sir. Don't you remember? The Count cut off your allowance because you were spending money like water." Hearing this was like a bolt from the blue. He immediately fell into thought. "Wait a sec. So you're saying I don't have any money left? Like I'm completely broke?" Then he suddenly turned to her and held out both hands. "Then give me some cash." Belinda burst out laughing. "Huh? Where on earth would I get any money?" The conversation ended there. Ghislaine sat alone by the window. His gaze drifted toward the vast sky outside. He muttered, "Damn it, no money, no soldiers. Then what exactly do I have? If I don't even have a cent to my name, I can't do a damn thing. Even with knowledge of the future, it's all useless. I need to figure out a way to get paid first. Is there any way—" Wait, wasn't there something at the estate? Suddenly, from outside, someone could be heard running in a hurry. The door was flung open. A loud shout rang out. "Young master." Ghislaine was startled. He calmly stepped down and said, "Ricardo, is something wrong?" His face was pale. Beads of sweat soaked Ricardo's face. He cried out, "There's trouble, sir. Young Master Khan wants to see you." Meanwhile, at a tavern somewhere, Scoven was being beaten to a pulp. Heavy punches were being thrown repeatedly, landing square on his face. It didn't end there. An uppercut slammed into his solar plexus. He let out a pathetic cry of agony. Just as Ghislaine arrived, the man collapsed to the ground unconscious. A voice called out, "Whoa, there you are." The main character finally shows up. "Hey there." Ghislaine looked at the hulking guy in front of him. Ghislaine thought, "I remember this face. The heir of the Lodescan family. He was once an ally of mine. Back then he was my only friend. And also my greatest enemy." Snapping out of his thoughts, Ghislaine said, "Ricardo, what's going on here?" Ricardo replied in fear, "Exactly what it looks like, sir. We received a report about a disturbance at the tavern and learned that Khan was there with his escorts. Upon recognizing us, he asked if the rumors about the young master, Ghislaine, were actually true. So Commander Scoven explained the details of those rumors to him. Then he grabbed the commander in a fit of rage, and that's how this all started." Just as the sentence finished, Khan hooked his thumbs into his waistband and spoke arrogantly. "Hey, if you're gonna tell it right. He said that a guy like you, who has never trained a day in his life, took down an orc with his bare hands, and even handled those traitorous escort knights, all by himself. So I just gave the old man a little wake-up call to snap him back to reality." Stepping right up to Ghislaine's face, Khan sneered and continued, "This wouldn't be happening if you hadn't lied in the first place." Ghislaine immediately looked annoyed. He kept scowling, his eyes turning fierce as he thought, "Yeah, he really is that type of guy. Always treating me like I'm his lackey. Every time he comes to podium, he causes trouble, even after making such a mess. No one dares to say a word, because I'm essentially his subordinate. No one looks down on Khan unlike me, someone who's always been riddled with insecurity. His confidence and bold attitude are praised as the worthy qualities of an heir. That's why I only ever get more criticism." Seeing Ghislaine remain silent and motionless, Khan wondered to himself, "Wait, what's with this guy? Usually he'd have lashed out at me. After this much provocation, right? Scene shifts back to a short while ago, at the Lodes estate. In a room, Khan sat regally and asked in surprise, "Wait, kill Ghislaine." In front of him was a mysterious cloaked subordinate. The man spoke up. "If you complete this mission, the higher-ups will support the Lore's family." Hearing the immediate benefits, Khan looked intrigued. He replied, "Taking care of that kid isn't exactly hard. But Ghislaine is an heir too. Why do I have to take his life?" The mysterious subordinate quickly continued, "We can goad him into a duel. Stage the scene to look like an unfortunate accident. It'll just look like a typical dispute between noble heirs. I'll go along disguised as an escort knight to handle the situation. So you don't need to worry about a thing. This is a rare opportunity for you." Khan turned away and stammered, "I have to kill my own cousin Ghislaine." Then he suddenly turned back around, a vile look appearing on his face. "Well then, let's get moving." Back to the present, Khan was wondering to himself, they want him wiped out. Did something change? If that's the case, then, cutting through his train of thought, Ghislaine spoke up, blankly, "Wait, so long story short, what's the deal?" Khan suddenly sighed. "Why are you still standing there? Since I've already made the trip here, you should bring out what you prepared for me, shouldn't you?" Ghislaine paused for a moment and blurted out, "Prepared what, are you out of your damn mind?" Khan suddenly laughed. "I heard the festival was postponed, huh? Let's liven things up and just enjoy this wonderful time. We've always been on the same page when it comes to stuff like this. Isn't that right? Am I wrong, buddy?" Ghislaine acted indifferent and said, "Oh, are you talking about that?" As soon as he said it, Ghislaine thought, "That's right. This guy always demands I prepare booze and girls every time he visits. I used to give in just to avoid a beating, but from now on, that's not happening anymore. I'm not wasting any more precious money on him." Recalling Belinda's words, "Did you forget your father cut your allowance? Because you wasted too much money." Suddenly Khan's bark brought him back to the present. Ghislaine Khan was still sitting there arrogantly. He started making demands. "If you remember now, then hurry up and bring them out. Can't you see I've been sitting here waiting this whole time?" But Ghislaine looked at him with a face full of anger. He quickly shot back, "Yeah, sure, I should bring them right out, shouldn't I? But wait, don't you also have a debt to pay me?" The mysterious subordinate stood there stunned. A giant question mark appeared in his mind. Khan looked up at him, face flushed with rage. "Wait, pay back what?" Ghislaine chuckled and replied with a mockingly playful tone, "You know I had to take care of everything. Using my money like you said, right? Cough up the cash, 1,000 gold bars including interest." Khan's blood was boiling now. With a scowling face, he snapped back, "What, 1,000 gold bars? All that stuff together? It isn't even worth 100 gold. And you did it to thank me for being your friend? Consider it a friendship fee." But Ghislaine cut him off immediately. "Friendship? My ass, I was more like your doormat. So pay up before I kick your butt out of here. I really need the cash, you know." Hearing Ghislaine's arrogant words, Ricardo cried out in fear, "What the young master, what on earth are you saying?" Suddenly a foot slammed onto the ground with immense force. Khan stood up, looked Ghislaine straight in the eye and said, "The only reason you're acting this bold is because I've been too soft on you." "Right." His face was dark with murderous intent as he continued, "It seems you really think you're hot stuff, just because you spread some fake news. About beating a knight, huh? You're nothing but a parasite, clinging to this land. That's why everyone in the north calls you a loser, an heir who only knows how to talk trash. Wake the hell up." The words had barely left his mouth when he lunged forward. He threw a punch at Ghislaine, but the tables have turned. Ghislaine sidestepped slightly, easily dodging Khan's powerful fist, leaving everyone present in total shock. And he didn't stop there. Khan spun around, launching another punch at Ghislaine's position, which Ghislaine evaded with ease once more. It was a perfect defense, but also served as a setup for Ghislaine's counterattack. He lunged forward and struck Khan square on. Thunderous blow. Bam! Khan collapsed to the ground, blood spilling. Angry growls filled the air. "Ah!" Seeing this, the mysterious subordinate rushed over, looking completely panicked. "Young master, are you all right, young master?" Ghislaine stood there stone-faced and said, "Get up, stop the whining. I know you blocked that hit." The subordinate turned and barked, "Back off, Ghislaine. Do you have any idea what you're doing?" Witnessing the scene from the sidelines, the patrons in the tavern gasped. What just happened? Ghislaine actually hit Khan. Did anyone catch that? Ghislaine now understood their game. He stood pensively. So this is how they want to play it. In the corner, Khan and his subordinate were snickering. They whispered to each other, "How's my acting? Pretty good, right? You set the stage perfectly, sir. Everyone will think this is all Ghislaine's fault. This should be more than enough to justify a duel. Of course, this is a golden opportunity to secure such powerful backing. This time I'll make sure to leave a lasting impression. Haha, it's the perfect time to cut off the podium family, now that they're getting weaker." After whispering, Khan went into full performance mode. he shouted in a feigned rage. How dare you tarnish the dignity of the nobility with your lies, and even attack me just for wanting the truth? Ghislaine, I challenge you to a duel. With that, he threw his glove straight at Ghislaine. Like a flash, Ghislaine caught the glove, his eyes sharp as he spoke. I challenge you to a duel, Can Rhodes. You have slandered me the air, right in front of the public at the podium, attacked my knight, and profaned the dignity of the nobility. You're not planning on backing down, are you? As if getting a reality check slapped across his face, Can let out a smug, gloating smirk. I already knew you were stupid, but I didn't think you were dumb enough to dig your own grave and bury yourself in it. Fine, I accept your challenge. Saying that, Khan turned and drew his sword. With an arrogant look, he pointed his blade toward Ghislaine. Even if you end up dead, don't you dare regret it. The scene shifts to an arena. Ghislaine was thinking to himself that the festival was suddenly postponed. The atmosphere that had been hyped to the max suddenly cooled down, leaving the tourists unable to leave, filled with regret. They must be feeling totally frustrated, because they can't spend their money or kill time. In a situation like this, if an event is held to appease them, the voice of a young man suddenly rang out. This is the match between young Master Khan and Ghislaine. The crowd below was buzzing with constant whispers. Bet your money on young Master Khan. That bastard is finally going to get wrecked, you'll see. At a nearby table, a fat guy was shouting at the top of his lungs. All right. Anyone wanting to bet, get in line? Gold coins were being tossed out one after another, accompanied by shouts of, I'm betting on young Master Khan. Me too. This is the safest bet ever. Back to the main event in the arena right now. Khan had just slammed his sword straight into the floor. With a look of sheer arrogance, he yelled, is a sacred duel supposed to be a circus like this? Turning to look at Ghislaine, he continued, let me make this clear before we start. Even if you surrender, my blade isn't going to stop. Ghislaine thought to himself, right. And that's definitely what he's thinking too. Snapping out of his thoughts, he spoke up. Looks like the crowd's big enough now, isn't it? Let's get started. At the same time, the guardian following Khan shouted from a distance, wait, if things stay like this, we can't even place any bets. Hearing that, the audience looked confused and bewildered. The fat man recording the bets looked down at his paper. He blurted out, no one is betting on Duke Ghislaine. So, at that moment, boos and heckles from the crowd began to erupt. To be honest, the result is already obvious. That guy doesn't stand a chance against young Master Khan. Someone find an idiot who's actually dumb enough to bet on the other side and bring them here. Khan immediately looked thrilled. Laughing gloatingly, he taunted Ghislaine, saying, oh boy, even the street market is ignoring you. Just then, another person walked up and added, hey, can we change the terms of the bet? Change it to how long can he last? Against young Master Ghislaine. He then slammed a money bag down in front of the fat man. Scoven, with a bruised face full of resentment, said, I'm betting on Duke Ghislaine. Hearing this, Ghislaine glanced over and gave a subtle smile. Next, another bag of money was piled on top, placed neatly in front of the fat man. Elena, with a face full of confidence, said, I'm also betting on my brother. Seeing this, everyone from Scoven to Ricardo and Ghislaine was shocked. An aggressive spectator frowned and gritted his teeth. You mean Lady Elena? On this side. Elena then asked the fat man, is this enough? Belinda quickly interrupted. Please remember I had advised you not to do this. The fat man, looking thoroughly amused, replied, ah yes, this is plenty. Khan glanced toward the fat man, putting on a frustrated face and said, hurry it up, you're making me wait for nothing. Immediately after the referee's voice rang out, ready. Ghislaine then spoke up and asked Khan, you know I'm older than you. So it might feel a bit awkward if I attack first, right? Khan flinched and asked back indignantly, what did you say? As soon as he finished speaking, Ghislaine reached out and drew his sword. At the same time, he performed a few basic flashy swings, then slashed down, striking a totally badass pose. With a sharp gaze, he said to Khan, come get some, kid. Fuming, Khan swung his sword violently against the floor. He retorted, don't you think it's a bit too late to start acting like the older one now? Immediately after, the referee shouted, begin. At that exact moment, Khan lunged off the ground, soaring high into the air, and delivered a powerful downward strike at Ghislaine. But Ghislaine was no pushover. He raised his sword horizontally to parry, stopping the attack in its tracks. Khan screamed in frustration. You've debased yourself just to save face. He swung his blade with force to knock Ghislaine back, then instantly gripped the blade itself, to thrust the hilt directly at Ghislaine. But with his small and agile frame, Ghislaine dodged it with ease. Seeing this, Khan raised his foot and stomped the floor with massive power, sending wooden splinters flying everywhere. The audience was blown away by Khan's explosive performance. They began to cheer as expected of young Master Khan. That guy won't even last another hit. Hearing those words, Khan looked utterly delighted, wearing a twisted, eerie grin. Ghislaine thought to himself, look at this eyesore of a face. Belinda looked terrified, clutching Elena's shoulder and asking, what do we do, my lady? We have to stop them right now. The Guardian following Khan let out a smug smile, thinking it's too late. No matter who the opponent is, the moment they point their sword at Khan, they've already fallen into the trap, shocked by that overwhelming power. The opponent will think they can't possibly counterattack, and they will be all alone, draining all their energy in the fight. Eventually, when the opponent is exhausted from dodging, they'll leave an opening, and finally they'll die. Khan always wins like that. Khan acted arrogantly, telling Ghislaine, "You're pretty agile. Seems like your skills have improved, huh?" Then he immediately threw his sword. The blade passed from one hand to the other, and he quickly gripped the edge of the sword. He slashed straight at Ghislaine, yelling, "Nice one! You've always been good at running away even back in the day." After taking the full force of the attack, Ghislaine's body was sent flying through the air by a powerful impact, making the entire audience gasp in awe. They shouted in pure shock, "Young master!" The Guardian chuckled to himself, thinking, "It's over for you, Ghislaine." At that moment, as Ghislaine's body slowly plummeted, he immediately channeled mana straight into his feet. With a sharp, intense gaze, he dove down and yelled, "I really wanted to go easy on you, but you've crossed the line." His body instantly teleported, appearing right in front of Khan. Khan didn't even have a time to process what was happening before Ghislaine's power-packed blade slashed him right across the torso. The Guardian looked furious, thinking he regained his balance by concentrating mana into his feet at the last second. Ghislaine slowly stood up, turned his back to Khan, and taunted him. "What an arrogant swordsman. You probably think you're the strongest, just because opponents cower in fear. Whenever you show a little bit of power, right?" He then immediately whirled back around to face Khan with a cold, piercing expression. "In that case, let me give you a reality check." Khan responded with a face contorted in rage. "Oh, really? And how exactly do you plan on doing that?" He immediately lunged forward, swinging his sword at Ghislaine. Ghislaine instantly sidestepped, landing a kick squarely on the hilt of Khan's sword. He then leapt up, performing a 360-degree spin in midair, delivering a series of high-impact slashes across Khan's body. Afterward, he stuck a perfectly cool landing. This left Khan absolutely livid. He raised his sword, growling, and lunged straight for Ghislaine's position. However, Ghislaine jumped just in time, using his feet to stomp Khan's sword down. Quick as a flash, he raised his own blade and delivered a lethal strike toward Khan's neck. After seeing the numerous wounds covered Khan's entire body, once again, the audience below couldn't believe their eyes. They started buzzing, "What the hell was that just now? Duke Ghislaine has improved so much. Wait, is he actually going to win? Damn it, I bet everything on young Master Khan." Seeing this, Elena let out a sigh of relief. Crossing her arms over her chest, she said to Belinda, "See from another corner." The Guardian following Khan watched him with a chilling look of worry. Khan looked down at the wounds on his body and thought, "These cuts are very shallow," even though he could have slashed much deeper. Did he do this on purpose? How could a thug have swordsmanship like this? Glancing over at Khan, Ghislaine, acting cold as ice, dropped his sword onto the floor. He mocked him, saying, "A skill gap like this is no fun at all. From now on, I'll fight you barehanded." Hearing those arrogant words, Khan growled in anger. "What did you say?" Ghislaine casually continued, "Maybe I should take this chance to teach you a lesson. With these very hands." Khan frowned and looked up. "You want to educate me?" Ghislaine quickly rolled up his sleeves and slowly approached, saying, "Yeah, you can't seem to handle my swordsmanship very well, so I'll take a handicap. Let's go hand to hand. You might do better that way. In exchange, I'll bet another 2,000 gold, doubling the initial amount on my victory." The crowd started gossiping barehanded. 2,000 gold. This is a real showdown between those two. The Guardian was stunned for a second, then looked down and laughed gleefully. He thought, "He dares to challenge Khan to a duel. I never thought I'd be grateful for his insanity. But right now, luck is definitely on our side." Interrupting his thoughts, the fat man hurriedly shouted, "All right, bets added, sir. This will now be a barehanded fight. Young Lord Ghislaine versus young Master Khan." Instantly, the chatter from the crowd erupted again. "All right, a barehanded fight, huh? I'm putting more money on Khan. Challenging that guy with pure strength is just plain stupid. But this time, I'm betting on young Lord Ghislaine." Khan's face darkened as he laughed mockingly. "Barehanded? You're making me laugh. Fine by me. Go ahead and fight without a weapon." At that, Khan tossed aside his red coat, pointed his sword straight at the sky and said, "As for me, I'm using my blade." Seeing this, Belinda shouted in worry, "This is insane, young lord. You should draw your sword too." Khan was now fuming, raising his sword with intense momentum, preparing for an attack. Ghislaine stood there with an unnervingly calm expression, saying, "Just as I thought, I really have to beat some sense into you." At the same time, Khan's sword thrust down. Ghislaine managed to dodge to the side just in time. Khan then tried to follow up with a kick. However, Ghislaine moved with incredible agility. He countered with a rapid-fire series of punches to Khan's legs. refusing to let up. Ghislaine landed a direct punch to Khan's chin, sending sprays of blood flying everywhere. Overwhelmed by pain, Khan's entire body slowly collapsed. In agony, Khan thought, what? How could his punches move in such a bizarre way? Jeers and shouts from below rang out again. This is so frustrating. Young Lord Ghislaine might actually win this match. Ghislaine gave a taunting smile and said to Khan, get up, I haven't even started yet. Khan, driven mad with rage, gnashed his teeth. Grind. Mustering every ounce of strength left, he flickered toward Ghislaine. Khan swung his sword repeatedly, but Ghislaine dodged every single blow. Ghislaine then spoke, even now, you can't even look me in the eye. You've been avoiding me since the moment I showed up. I have to kill you to protect the future of the Lodes family. At this, Ghislaine unleashed a barrage of frenzied punches, pummeling Khan relentlessly, leaving him completely unable to defend himself. A moment later, Khan slumped to the ground, his face swollen and battered beyond recognition. Wondering why did this happen? Ghislaine slowly approached, grabbed Khan by the hair, jerked his head back and said, I feel so sorry for your father. Baron Lodes supported Podium until it was on the brink of collapse, simply because he was my father's friend. But in the end, his son had a very different idea of what his legacy should be. Hearing this, Khan's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly flashed back to a few years ago, back at his family home. Khan had constantly questioned his father. Are you really going to help Podium again? Even if you're friends with Count Podium. We're the ones struggling right now. Why, father? Why do you keep helping such a toxic wasteland? It's like pouring water into a leaky bucket. You've barely been back for a week, and now you're leaving to help Podium again. Please don't go, father. Everyone has tried to stop you. Why are you so stubborn about helping Podium? His father glanced back at him and simply said, because we're friends. Snapping back to reality, Khan sat there in a daze while, at the same time, Ghislaine's fist was slowly driving toward his face, accompanied by the words, was that enough of a lesson for you? But unlike before, when he would have dodged or run, Khan just closed his eyes and accepted it. A moment later, feeling nothing, Khan quickly opened his eyes. Ghislaine was holding out a hand to him, saying, get up. Khan lowered his head and whispered, I really lost. The entire audience was on the edge of their seats, staring wide-eyed in utter confusion. Then a constant roar of cheering followed. Young Lord Ghislaine, I won my bet. Unbelievable. Look at all my cash. Helena couldn't hide her pure joy either, shouting, my brother won. Suddenly a pair of feet rushed toward Khan. The Guardian, unable to contain his rage, grabbed Khan and started berating him. How could you admit defeat so fast? Just because you were a little bit on the ropes. What the hell are you doing? I actually trusted you. Khan quickly looked away and replied, let go, it's over. The Guardian clutched his face in frustration, thinking, damn it, this big oaf! Seeing the Guardian's obnoxious attitude, Ghislaine smiled and said to him, I guess I should do what I need to do now, right? The Guardian shot back a fearful look and asked, what? Immediately, Ghislaine spread his arms and announced, listen up, everyone. This man in the hood is volunteering to pay for all the food and drinks for every single person gathered here. The Guardian was livid, grinding his teeth, with a loud crunch as he screamed, what the hell? Then he turned and yelled right in Ghislaine's face, I don't agree to that. Take back what you just said right now. Ghislaine patted him on the shoulder and coolly responded, this is the price for losing the match. You've got at least that much on you, right? And just to be clear, that money doesn't come out of the bet. He then gave him a hard squeeze that made him wince in pain and continued gleefully. Remember to add 2,000 gold to our wager, plus the initial 1,000 gold. If you dare to run, you know what'll happen. With everything settled, Ghislaine coldly walked away. The scene shifts to the next day in Ghislaine's room. Opening a box filled with gold coins, Ghislaine couldn't help but gasp in shock. Oh my God, I could hire a small band of mercenaries with this much money. This isn't just a small sum, but it would take forever to earn any more. They won't wait for me. To get my business plan off the ground, I need to move faster. Suddenly, Elena and Belinda approached from behind. Ghislaine turned around with a tired look and asked, what is it now? Elena asked back with a beaming smile. Brother, what are you planning to do with all that cash? Ghislaine replied bluntly, you want some? Elena acted all innocent and shy as she replied, oh, I was just curious, that's all. Then Belinda said with a cheeky grin, isn't it obvious what he's using it for? Lady Amelia's birthday is coming up, isn't it? You're doing all this because you want to buy her a super expensive gift. Right. You're so smooth, my lord. Elena snapped back in annoyance. Oh, please. Doing all that just to look good for your fiancé. Wait, hearing his sister's words, Ghislaine looked completely lost and wondered, I have a fiancé. He then frowned and asked, I have a fiancé. Belinda looked down and teased him. You must be blushing. That's why you're playing dumb, right? And Elena sighed and added, it's Amelia from the Zephyr family. Ghislaine thought to himself, ah, that woman. Amelia Zephyr. a noble admired by everyone, for her kindness and her class regardless of status. But later on, she'll lead the rebellion and become known as the Witch of the North. And alongside Duke Delphin, she'll sing the requiem for the fall of Podium. A traitor. Snapping out of it, Ghislaine quickly changed the subject and asked Belinda, "When is father coming back?" Belinda replied, "He should be back in about a week." Ghislaine thought to himself, "A week, huh? That should be enough." He then stood up, headed out, and said, "I'm heading over to the Zephyr territory." Belinda jumped and tried to stop him. "Wait, it's not even her birthday yet. Why the sudden rush?" Ghislaine glanced back and replied, "To get the money." Scene changed to an unknown location. A girl with tattoos covering her chest and a spider tattoo at the corner of her mouth was carefully placing a pair of children's shoes on the ground. She gently looked up and told a beggar child, "Here." The child recognized her immediately and, feeling overjoyed, called out, "Lady Amelia." Amelia quickly continued, "If anyone has to go barefoot in my city, it will only ever be me." Then she glanced back and ordered her soldiers, "Quickly give them food and shelter right now." Soon crates of supplies were being delivered to the people. As they departed, shouts of gratitude rang out in unison. "Thank you, my lady." In the garden of Amelia, Zephyr, daughter of Count Zephyr, a bodyguard named Bernoff was kneeling on the ground, washing Amelia's toes one by one. He then looked up and flattered her. "You've worked hard today, master," Amelia replied. "My father always demands absolute submission from everyone, but those fools only follow the person who gives them warmth and food." Bernoff, with a calculating expression, said, "With this, the hearts of the people already belong to you. This will certainly benefit you in the race for the upcoming inheritance, my lady." Amelia looked dazed for a moment, then immediately stomped her foot right into Bernoff's face, asking haughtily, "How was your battle with the Northern Sword Master?" Bernoff replied fearfully, "Forgive me, my lady. I was only trying to keep as low a profile as possible. If I had won, your actions would have attracted way too much attention. It is not yet time to show our claws." Immediately after, Bernoff took Amelia's fair foot, kissed it with deep satisfaction, and said, "My sword belongs to you." Amelia looked highly amused and said, "Then what exactly have I raised you to be?" She then immediately jerked Bernoff's chin up, leaned in close to his face, and warned him, "Don't ever be weak. Anyway, what's the word on the Merchant Guild?" Bernoff immediately replied, "If you mean the Activium Guild, you have nothing to worry about. They're currently swamped, buying up materials to rebuild the outposts. The wild beast forest is a wreck, half destroyed by those orc attacks near Podium, my lady. In other words, we're siphoning off all the support funds that Count Zephyr sends to Podium every year. We've also successfully recruited all the soldiers and knights who left Podium. Many are battle-hardened veterans, trained by the Manji people. Their quality is top-tier, no cap." Amelia looked satisfied and said, "Good. Keep maintaining the front as an ordinary merchant guild until we're fully prepared. Our true identity must not be compromised." Interrupting their conversation, a servant hurried in, bowed, and said, "Pardon me, my lady." Bernoff stepped forward, rolling up his sleeves, and barked, "The lady is resting. How dare you disturb her?" The servant stammered in fear, I'm sorry, but—" "There's word from the gate that Lord Ghislaine Podium has just arrived," Amelia asked in surprise. "Why is that annoying pest here?" The servant bowed low in fear, with sweat streaming down his face, and replied, "Well, the thing is, he says he has business to discuss regarding the Merchant Guild." In Amelia's drawing room, a room filled with luxury and expensive furnishings. Seeing Amelia come out and sit down, Ghislaine spoke up, "Hello, Amelia." She frowned in irritation and replied, "How very rude of you to show up unannounced. Have you completely forgotten your manners?" Then Ghislaine laughed cheerfully and explained, "Since your birthday is coming up, I just wanted to give you your gift a bit early." He then placed a flower on the table and continued, "I found something from a guild out on the front lines. It has a wonderful scent. I think I'll start buying my flowers there." "What was the name of that guild again?" "Ah, right, the Activium Guild." Amelia bolted upright and snapped, "I have no idea what you're talking about." She then turned away subtly, showing him the door. "I'll accept the gift so you can leave now." Suddenly, Ghislaine assumed a cold expression, his eyes filled with a murderous intent. He commanded Amelia Zephyr, "Sit down." Startled, her eyes widened in shock. Glancing at Ghislaine, she thought, "What is this pressure? Is this really the same man who used to fumble and stutter every time he stood before me?" Ghislaine calmly held his teacup and said, "I'll be brief, I need money. Give me 10,000 gold coins and then—" Amelia frowned and asked angrily, "What, excuse me? You just show up and demand money from your fiancé. Is this the Count of Podium's idea?" Ghislaine quickly clarified, "He has nothing to do with this. Just hand it over." Then he suddenly tipped his tea out, and with a cold gaze fixed on Amelia, he continued, "Besides, it's not like you actually plan on marrying me anyway. It's that night outside the door, isn't it? Once you're in power, you can do whatever you want. But before that happens, Imagine if the fact that you're secretly building an army for the Zephyr Inheritance War were to be leaked. Amelia looked absolutely livid. With bloodshot eyes and a glowing red aura of killing intent, she cut Ghislaine off. Even if you're joking, you really shouldn't say things like that. Ghislaine smiled slightly and said, "Don't worry. I'll keep your secret. As long as I don't leave here empty-handed." Amelia snapped back, "Never." Suddenly the door burst open. Bernoff stormed in with a scowl on his face. He stepped in front of Ghislaine and said with a mock salute, "Lord Ghislaine, it's been a long time." Ghislaine glanced up at him and thought, Bernoff, a man who always stood by Amelia's side. Even back then his skills were on par with the Northern Swordmaster. Snapping out of his thoughts, Ghislaine asked, "If I die here, a territorial war will break out. Can you really handle that?" Amelia replied nonchalantly, "Of course. A troublemaker broke in and was killed. By a bodyguard, that's how the world will know it. What are you waiting for? Kill him." Bernoff. He obeyed the order and slowly drew his sword. Meanwhile, Ghislaine was thinking to himself, if she's willing to go this far, I guess I'll have to get a little serious too. At the same time, he reached for the sword propped under his chair. Suddenly, Ghislaine heard a strange noise. From behind a suit of armor, constant clanking sounds grew louder and louder, catching Ghislaine's attention. Instantly, an assassin smashed through the armor and lunged straight at Ghislaine. But with his main character energy, Ghislaine rolled across the floor, while simultaneously flipping the chair up, causing the assassin to stab the chair instead. He then sprang up and kicked the assassin square in the gut, sending both him and the chair flying several meters back. Witnessing this scene, Bernoff and Amelia were stunned. After dealing with the assassin, Ghislaine turned back and said with a smirk, "Pretending to play nice while setting up an assassin. To backstab me, this kind of hospitality is trash." In that moment, Ghislaine swung his sword and charged in to attack Bernoff. As he closed the gap, Ghislaine unleashed a horizontal slash at Bernoff, but he parried it with ease. Ghislaine mocked him with visible annoyance. "What? Does Zephyr have no sense of chivalry at all?" Bernoff countered, "Pardon me, but the rude one here is Grand Duke Ghislaine. You barged in without a single word of notice, upsetting the young lady. For someone like you from the very start, there's no need to stand on ceremony anymore." Then in an instant, Bernoff unleashed a straight thrust aimed right at Ghislaine. Ghislaine quickly spun his body around, narrowly dodging that fatal strike, and then leaped up to deliver a direct kick to Bernoff. The impact sent him skidding backward, frustrated and thinking to himself, "Grand Duke Ghislaine, I heard you were just a useless loser, who only knew how to put on a show. But it looks like you're not exactly a total noob, are you?" Amelia urged him on. "What are you doing? Don't tell me you're struggling against that thug." Bernoff looked back and replied, "My lady." By now, Amelia was absolutely livid. She ordered, "Take his head for me immediately." "If you truly are my sword," Bernoff gripped his sword tightly and answered, "I will not fail you." He then pointed his sharp blade straight at Ghislaine, with a menacing aura and a provocative look. "Come on, bring it," Ghislaine replied with a smirk. "You're just a bodyguard and you dare command me?" Bernoff growled through gritted teeth. "I was holding back. But since you don't know your place, I'll give you exactly what you want." The moment he finished speaking, Bernoff lunged forward, attacking from every angle. However, Ghislaine blocked every single strike. Amelia watched from the sidelines, seething with rage, thinking, "Ghislaine, a lowlife. Like you, how can you be holding your own against an elite like Bernoff?" Meanwhile, Ghislaine was thinking to himself, "As I thought you're using mana to buff yourself and parry my moves." Bernoff stepped arrogantly toward Ghislaine and said, "Grand Duke, you're quite different from the rumors. I guess it's true. You never really know an opponent until you fight them." Ghislaine thought, "This is getting a bit tricky. Those thrusts with such a narrow blade, and attacks aimed straight for my head. It's making it hard to judge distance and timing. At close range, the gap in physical strength makes it tough to use pure technique to overwhelm him right away. I already knew he wasn't going to be a pushover, but I'm running out of time." Right after that, Ghislaine released his mana, forming silk-like threads on his arm that swung out like a glowing electric whip. It lashed out toward Bernoff, tightly binding his sword arm. Then he instantly closed the distance and drove a knee straight into Bernoff's face, smashing his features into a distorted mess. Amelia looked on with pure terror and screamed. But an elite like him wouldn't be taken down that easily. After being dazed for a few seconds, he retreated toward Amelia and said, "My lady, please get out of here. I can no longer guarantee your safety." "From now on, I'm going all out," Ghislaine replied nonchalantly. "Good, keep that same energy. It's been a while since I've faced an opponent as interesting as you." Immediately, Amelia grabbed her dress and bolted. As she ran, she couldn't stop cursing Ghislaine in her head. "How dare you humiliate me like this? Which idiot leaked info about the merchant guild to that psycho Ghislaine? That's Ghislaine, isn't it? Otherwise, how could he know everything so well? The rumors about him killing orcs, protecting his sister from assassins, and even defeating the Lode's heir. Based on that scoundrel's track record, I thought he just got lucky. Or the stories were just cap. But who would have guessed? Damn it, what the hell are my guards doing? She reached a room, but by then all of Amelia's guards had been wiped out by a girl wearing a cloak that covered her entire body. The girl slowly turned around, revealing a stunningly beautiful face. She smiled and said to Amelia, "It's been a while, hasn't it, madam?" Amelia flinched in shock and gasped, "The podium maid. How are you?" In a flash, the girl blurred behind Amelia, held a knife to her throat and said, "Shh, quiet now." Then she reached out and snatched the spider resting on the veil. Amelia mocked, "Oh my God, are you still keeping this disgusting spider on your lips?" Back at the engagement ceremony, I remember overhearing the conversation between Earl Zefau and his lordship. "Your brothers used to tease you because of those hideous spiders, so you started breeding them yourself for revenge. I don't know if you're doing this to overcome a phobia or to prove a point, but forgive me for saying this, it really doesn't suit you, madam. Why don't you just cooperate nicely?" At that moment, the girl threw the spider to the ground and crushed it. Back to the battle between the two men. Ghislaine was thinking to himself, wow, this atmosphere is getting heavy. The amount of power radiating out is insane. Bernoff spoke up visibly enraged, an opponent worth entertaining. Only low-rent mercenaries talk like that. And yet you dare call yourself a noble like my mistress? Ghislaine taunted, "Of course I'm a noble. How could a mere bodyguard like you ever understand that?" Unable to take the insult, Bernoff lunged forward to attack, but Ghislaine blocked him effortlessly. Afterward, he conjured a series of sought-after images, rushing straight at Ghislaine, forcing him to struggle to defend himself. After successfully fending off that move, Ghislaine's arm felt painful and completely exhausted. He looked up at Bernoff and said, "Your attacks are quite fierce." Then he immediately charged, releasing his third mind power. His after-images were seen flickering rapidly, forward, rushing straight toward Bernoff's position, with an immense surge of power, aiming right for Bernoff's forehead. But just then a voice rang out, "Stop!" The mysterious girl had brought Amelia over. Amelia broke into bitter tears and continued, "Take the 10,000 gold. Take it and get lost." Ghislaine immediately turned around and started snapping. What a total buzzkill. Why couldn't you just do that when I asked nicely? At the same time, he pulled the sword away from Bernoff's forehead. The girl in the cloak spoke up. "Good grief, what kind of lover's quarrel ends in a disaster like this? Young master?" Ghislaine quickly turned and approached to reply, "Just a slight difference of opinion, that's all. I have some bad news for you, Amelia. The fee just spiked to 20,000 gold. The moment Ghislaine and the girl left, a dark and gloomy atmosphere enveloped the entire house. The corpses strewn across the floor, and the trashed belongings only fueled Amelia's rage. She smashed a vase onto the ground. Bernoff hurried over, head bowed low, and spoke, "Forgive me, my lady. He is far stronger than the rumors suggested. The fault is mine for failing to gauge the situation properly." In an instant, he drew out enough mana to overwhelm a high-ranking knight. Amelia, exuding a sinister bloodlust, she said, "You've changed a lot, haven't you?" Ghislaine podium. Bernoff scowled, came up with an idea, and asked, "In that case, should we report this to Duke Delphine?" Amelia grabbed him by the collar in a rage and said, "Watch your tongue. Do you have any idea how terrifying Duke Delphine is for you to speak so lightly? If what happened today gets out, we'll be executed immediately. The reason I'm secretly working with Duke Delphine behind my father's back is because I promised to support his rebellion in exchange for his help in taking down Podium. If this comes to light, I'll end up being slaughtered by my own brothers. If the council already knows all the secrets, they probably know about this deal too. No matter what it takes, Ghislaine must die." Bernoff understood the situation instantly. He looked up and replied, "Understood." Amelia then asked about Ghislaine's condition. Bernoff replied quickly, "He has wounds on his body and a major wound on his shoulder. Right after summoning that massive mana burst, for the time being, his physical condition is going to be pretty shaky. If we want to keep our hands clean, we can't use the territory's official knights." Amelia whipped around and said, "I know. That's exactly why I've been raising those brats for moments like this." Bernoff looked skeptical and asked, "Wait, don't tell me you." Amelia stepped up to the tactical map, moved a flag and said, "A hardened veteran of the battlefield, devoid of humanity, with no social standing, a specialist among specialists, from those who live in the shadows. The Assassin's Guild. Send those guys here, and pick out about 18 of them who are mana proficient." Looking at Amelia's strategic move, Bernoff thought to himself as expected. That narrow path is the only way from the Jafau territory to Podium. Even though the terrain offers plenty of cover, if you want to handle things quietly and cleanly, that's the perfect spot. He immediately snapped out of his thoughts and replied, "I will make the arrangements thoroughly." Amelia let out a mocking laugh and said, "Ghislaine made me swallow this humiliation, so he's going to pay a hell of a price." Meanwhile, on Ghislaine's side, he was sitting in a carriage, patching up his wounds. The Lord asked anxiously, "Young Master Ghislain, are you all right?" Ghislain replied, "Don't sweat it. It's nothing serious, Lord." He then lifted his arm to test it out and thought, "The wound isn't that deep. Not too bad even though I pushed it a bit. The 20,000 gold I squeezed out of Amelia is a big enough chunk to rebuild our territory. This basically just saved us several years. It would have been better if I could have finished Amelia off, but that would have made an all-out territorial war unavoidable. I can't let my own emotional outbursts put the land in jeopardy, because Podium is already in a deadlock, and it's barely even holding back the barbarian invasions. So this is the best time to strike them back. The fact that I know the secrets of the wicked society will make you hesitate. And watch your step, Amelia. This time I'm going to use you for everything you're worth." Noticing the young master looking lost in thought, Belinda spoke up. "Everything went exactly as you said." "Right," Ghislain coldly replied, "yeah." Then Belinda continued, "They said if they heard fighting inside, they would neutralize the personal guards. When Lady Amelia came out, they planned to take her hostage." Ghislain said indifferently, "Oh, is that so? But I already assigned that task to Lord Fergus." Immediately after, a wave of pain hit him as sparks of lightning crackled around Ghislain's body, causing the Lord to ask anxiously, "Young Master, are you okay?" Ghislain looked at his blood-stained hand and thought, "That's the third time. Is the energy core really destroyed? It's in better shape than last time. But at this rate, it's a real pain every time I use my power. I need to find a way to increase my mana fast." Suddenly, Belinda grabbed his hand, focusing on applying the medical techniques she had picked up somewhere. She felt his pulse, then immediately pulled out a needle and said, "The mana flow is completely chaotic." She then proceeded to prick Ghislain's hand in several spots. A few minutes later, Ghislain let out a long sigh. He held his hand up with a skeptical look on his face, thinking, wait, the mana pathways have actually cleared up a bit. Without a deep understanding of mana, performing this kind of treatment is impossible. I heard my mother was the one who brought her in, so I figured she wasn't just some ordinary person. What's with this special constitution? I don't get why someone this talented is just hanging out in some remote, backwater countryside like this. The more powerhouses in the territory, the better. The ones I've met so far are just the beginning." Cutting through his train of thought, Belinda then said, "Since I believe in you, young master, no matter what you do, I'll also always help you out, no questions asked. So please just tell me, why did you take such a massive amount of money from Lady Amelia?" Ghislain replied nonchalantly, "I have a use for it. But besides Amelia, no one else around here is loaded enough." Belinda looked completely shocked and asked, "What no? I mean, we risked everything to borrow that money. And that's the only reason. If this reaches Count Japhau's ears, it's going to be a disaster." Ghislain quickly responded, "It's fine, Amelia would never tell her father. You trust me, right?" Belinda gave a cheerful smile and replied, "Oh well, I guess so. But at least tell the person who just saved you from certain death what exactly you're planning to do with that cash." "Okay." But Ghislain put on a serious face and said, "The demon forest. I'm going to conquer the demon forest." The Lord jumped in alarm. "No, that's impossible. Young master, there have been many grand attempts since your great-grandfather's time, but—" Ghislain cut in sternly, "Lord Fergus, what about the task I gave you before we entered the city?" The Lord replied fearfully, "Yes, the person you were looking for is indeed exactly where you said they'd be. But are you sure about this, his current state?" Ghislain interrupted, "As long as he's breathing, it's fine. I'm headed there right now." Belinda angrily tried to stop him. "No, you need to go back to the territory." "How can you go wandering around with your body in this condition?" "Listen," Ghislain explained. "Belinda, do you really think after what I did to Amelia, they're just going to let us walk away?" Belinda stood up abruptly, flexed her muscular arms and said, "Young master, I'm actually a beast in a fight. And Lord Fergus is a knight too. If it comes down to it, I'll take care of them in a flash." Ghislain replied indifferently, "That's reassuring. But that's not your job. They are completely different fields. I need a pioneer to lead the charge. I'm going to meet that person." They arrived in front of a house, shabby and tucked away at the foot of a mountain. Ricardo quickly stepped forward and knocked. No one came to the door yet. Belinda asked skeptically, "The family? The family is basically on the verge of a total collapse, aren't they?" The Lord scratched his head and replied, "The address is definitely here, though." A moment later, a hand slowly cracked the door open. Stepping outside, they were greeted by an old man with snow-white hair and beard. He spoke up and asked, "Who are you people?" Belinda turned and whispered to Ghislain, "Young master is the person you wanted me to find. Really supposed to look like that. Lead the charge for real. He looks like he's about to kick the bucket." Ghislain quickly confirmed, "No, we've found the right man." Seeing that no one answered him, the man turned back in frustration to close the door and said, "This young noble must have too much free time on his hands. Don't waste my time, get lost." Ghislain quickly intervened. "Wait a second. I am the captain of the Ratatoskr Mercenaries, Ghislaine. Hearing those words, the old man glanced back. At the same time, Ghislaine extended his hand forward. Offering a friendly gesture, he said, I've truly been looking forward to meeting you. After hearing what Ghislaine said, the Lord flinched slightly and blurted out, The Ratatoskr Mercenaries, Ricardo then added. Wait, could it be the Ratatoskr Mercenaries? The place where only those proficient in almost every weapon could ever dream of joining, even though they've disbanded now. Their legendary courage is known across every nation. Any knight worth their salt has heard of them. And the leader of that mercenary group was Jillian. In an instant, an axe was hurled straight at Ghislaine. He quickly tilted his head to the side and successfully dodged it, leaving the other three absolutely terrified. Jillian stepped out fuming and said, So that's it. You actually know who I am. What do you want? Belinda pulled out her dagger, her face full of bloodlust. She shouted, Get back! Young master, there's something wrong with this guy. Then Ghislaine coldly said to Jillian, Eternal punishment. Those words made Jillian jump in shock. He then continued, I know how to cure your daughter's incurable disease. Now are you ready to talk? High fever coughing up blood, red spots blooming like flower petals. An incurable illness. That leaves the patient writhing in agony, as if they're enduring a sinner's sentence. The eternal punishment. Entering the house, Jillian rushed over and tightly held his daughter, who was in deep pain, repeatedly calling out Rachel's name. Ghislaine thought to himself with a somber look, It's not too late. In my past life, I tried to recruit Jillian too, but back then he was already gone. He committed suicide after his daughter died, giving up on everything. Looking at the state of this house, he must have spent every last cent trying to save her. Is he really down to nothing but his weapons? There's no time to waste. She needs treatment right this second. At that moment, Ghislaine quickly took off his outer coat. Suddenly, Belinda stepped up and grabbed his shoulder, stopping him. Young master, let's just go back. I don't know what you're planning, but this isn't something that can be solved with force. Even the high priests couldn't cure this. They call it a punishment from the gods. How do you even plan to do it? Ghislaine brushed Belinda's hand off and said confidently, I can cure it. You said you trusted me, didn't you? Then he handed Belinda a slip of paper and said, Take this and buy every single medicinal ingredient listed here. Don't miss a single thing. For mercenaries living day to day, knowledge is the ultimate key to survival. Eternal punishment right now, it's incurable. But in the future, a cure will exist. It caused quite a stir back then, because the preparation was actually pretty simple. Even with everything going on, I still remember it clearly. The problem is it requires some insanely expensive ingredients. Fairy's blessing. Crush the fairy's blessing, along with the herbs. Put them in the flask and pour in the strong liquor. Shake well until the mixture. Wait a second. Then add the remaining ingredients and stir thoroughly. Once the concoction was finished, Ghislaine quickly brought it over to Jillian and said, Make her drink this. Jillian immediately took it to Rachel and poured it into her mouth. Right away, the red rashes on her face began to fade. The Lord and Belinda were struck with amazement, exclaiming, Those red spots are actually disappearing. Still half doubting, Jillian leaned in close to her. My daughter, Rachel. This medicine really, Ghislaine said calmly. As expected, it's very effective. Jillian quickly looked up at Ghislaine. How is this possible when even holy power couldn't cure her? Ghislaine then explained, The holy power of the priests isn't a cure-all. It only boosts vitality and regeneration, letting the body fight the disease itself. That's different from a method that targets the root cause. With trembling hands, Jillian grabbed Ghislaine, saying, Then that means, can my daughter actually get better? Ghislaine smiled and replied, In a month or two, she'll definitely be cured. Hearing Ghislaine's definitive promise, Jillian immediately bowed in respect before him and said, What do you want from me? You obviously came here with a purpose, but I'm just a shadow of my former self now. If you want me to be your dog, I'll be your dog. If you want me as a slave, I'll be that too. Ghislaine reached out and said calmly, No, I don't need a slave, I need Jillian. The leader of the Ratatoskr mercenaries. Jillian looked up at Ghislaine and thought to himself, Those eyes, the eyes of a man with a grand vision. And immediately, Jillian grabbed his ponytail from behind. With his other hand, he picked up the axe and sliced the hair off, letting it fall to the ground. He then turned back and asked Ghislaine, Besides the people here, is there anyone else coming or with you? Ghislaine quickly replied, No, it's just us. Jillian walked towards the weapon rack, grabbed a spear wrapped in rope, and asked further, Does anyone have a beef with you? Ghislaine coldly replied, Yes, and there'll be plenty more soon. In an instant, Jillian hoisted the spear, channeled his energy, pivoted his body, and launched it like a beast. It tore through the house wall, leaving a massive hole, as he gripped the rope with all his might. He acted as if he were hauling something back, until finally the spear skewered an assassin, who was slowly being dragged toward Jillian's hand. He immediately seized the assassin by the throat, lifting him off the ground to interrogate him. Who sent you here? The man replied tremblingly, How did you know? Jillian turned and asked Ghislaine, what's the plan? Ghislaine answered straight away, I think I know who's behind this. I didn't want to get my hands dirty today, but... He slowly reached down to grip his sword. But Jillian quickly waved his hand to stop him, responding with an excited look. I'll handle this, no wasted moves. Jillian tightened his grip, crushing the assassin's throat. Belinda, witnessing that brutal scene, thought to herself, zero hesitation. Why on earth would the young master recruit someone so dangerous? Jillian then knelt before Ghislaine, bowing as he spoke. Young Lord Ghislaine Podium, from this moment on, my life belongs to you. Ghislaine thought to himself that with this move, I've secured a vital piece for my plan to rebuild the territory. Then he smiled and said to Jillian, I look forward to working with you. Night had begun to fall, and inside Jillian's house, the sounds of a rowdy group could be heard. A bunch of strangers from the Talon Guild were ransacking the place, muttering to each other. What the hell, these idiots? Viego sat arrogantly in a chair, and with a menacing look he barked at his subordinates. Shut your traps and keep it down. One of them stepped forward to take the blame, answering. My apologies, Captain. Viego continued. According to Bernoff's intel, with the forces young Lord Ghislaine has right now, never mind killing him, they shouldn't even be able to spot our scouts. So are the scouts incompetent, or was the intel garbage? The subordinate stammered in response. Well, about that. It seems Jillian has joined his group. Hearing exactly what he didn't want to hear, Viego lunged forward and choked the subordinate, glaring with ferocious eyes and asking, Is that for real? The subordinate trembled violently and answered, Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. Viego thought to himself, Jillian, you've finally made your move, my former captain. Meanwhile, Jillian was driving a carriage, racing through the dead of night. Inside, Belinda couldn't stop grumbling with a frustrated face. Ugh, it's so cramped. This old guy isn't even a merchant. A couple of swords or an axe should have been plenty. Why do we have to carry all this junk? We even had to buy an extra carriage for it. Ghislaine spoke up. Come on, we needed the carriage to bring Rachel. Back comfortably anyway. On the other hand, focusing on the backup team, Ricardo was also driving a carriage of his own. Then Ghislaine added cheerfully, It's all useful stuff, so just have a little patience. The most important thing right now is getting out of this ravine. Belinda then asked curiously, Young Master, about that guy we caught earlier, the one who was tailing us. He was sent by Lady Amelia, wasn't he? Ghislaine confirmed it with certainty. Belinda then frowned and replied, This might be a bit of a headache. The mask he's wearing is the symbol of the guild. The Talon Guild, a pretty powerful group around here. Ghislaine asked in surprise, The Talon Guild? Belinda continued, They're a bunch of scumbags smuggling, assassination, drug-pushing, human trafficking. They do every dirty job imaginable. A lot of top-tier former mercenaries are in their ranks. They're a shadow guild with some serious muscle. Ghislaine gave Belinda a skeptical look and asked, You've only ever been in the castle. How do you know all this so well? Belinda replied sheepishly. Well, before I joined the castle staff, I was a bit... Anyway, they're like leeches. Once they stick, they don't let go. So we need to be careful. Ghislaine smiled and looked over at Jillian. It's fine. We'll be okay because we have Jillian. Right after that, clouds of white dust suddenly surrounded the carriage. Jillian sensed something and glanced over. At that moment, a group of men burst out from underground. Jillian quickly reached back to grab his sword, saying with a look of surprise, An underground attack. Immediately, two of them lunged forward, pointing their sharp blades straight at Jillian. But for a veteran mercenary captain, he easily blocked them with both hands. He then effortlessly took the hand of one unlucky guy and sliced him right in half. The pieces flew backward and hit the ground. Right then, just ahead of the carriage, a massive tree trunk was waiting to fall on them. Sensing the danger, Jillian stood up and shouted, It's a trap! Belinda cried out in fear, We're going to be crushed! Jillian brought the carriage to a screeching halt, just as the tree crashed down in front of them. Ghislaine said warily, Just as I thought, an ambush. Viego appeared instantly and began to taunt them. If it isn't Jillian, the former captain of the Ratatosker mercenaries. You coward! Dissolving the entire crew just for your daughter. Jillian stepped down from the carriage and replied, I have no idea what you're talking about. Viego lashed out bitterly. My life was ruined because of you. Have you gotten so old that you don't even remember your own former member? Or are you just playing dumb? Fine, I'll help jog your memory. Right after that, he ordered his lackeys to charge and attack. Ghislaine quickly asked, Need a hand? Jillian reached behind his back, grabbed his battle axe and replied, No need. It looks like he's got a bone to pick with me. So just sit back, young master. I can handle this solo. As the lackeys closed in on Jillian, he calmly pivoted to find his stance and delivered a powerful swing, slicing one man clean in half. The rest of them screamed in rage, You old geezer, how dare you? Then they charged in aggressively to strike, but once again Jillian effortlessly took an arm off one of them. Following up with a finishing blow that cut the man in two, blood gushed out everywhere. Viego felt a chill and thought to himself, as expected, that mercenary strength is still there. Suddenly, Jillian leaped onto a horse, pulled out a rope-bound axe, and barreled toward Viego like a madman. But Viego quickly jumped into the air. Jillian immediately pulled out his shield to block. Viego dove down with incredible speed and terrifying force, aiming straight for Jillian. But with his shield ready, he easily raised it to parry a lethal thrust. Viego said mockingly, "If you're gonna ruin someone's life, then at least don't stand in my way, John. I'm going to kill you." And instantly, he pulled out 3 daggers with a crazed look in his eyes and threw them straight into the horse's neck. Then he kicked off Jillian's shield, using the momentum to vault high up. After being hit by the hidden weapons, the horse collapsed to the ground. At the same time, Jillian quickly leaped down and stood his ground defiantly. Exuding an immense aura of power, he spoke firmly to Viego. "I'm no longer a mercenary, Captain. Now I'm simply a subordinate of young Lord Ghislaine." Viego screamed in bitter rage, "I'm going to kill you!" Then he once again lunged at Jillian in a frenzy. He stabbed wildly from left to right, then from top to bottom, but one by one every strike was shut down by Jillian's shield. This only made him more frustrated as he spat out insults. "When you walked away, the mercenary corps fell apart because of you. I lost my purpose in life, and I've been living a pathetic existence just to survive." Not wanting to waste any more time on him, Jillian swung his axe in a counterattack, but Viego nimbly ducked to dodge it and delivered a back kick toward Jillian, punching a massive hole right through the shield. He then snarled, "Jillian, I was ready to give my entire life to the Ratatosker mercenaries, with everything I had, yet you threw it all away, just to be a servant for some corrupt noble. I'll never forgive you for that." At that moment, he pulled out 3 throwing stars. He hurled them straight at Jillian, but it was like a mosquito bite to him. For a veteran captain who had survived as many battles as he had, he simply gave his axe a casual spin, instantly knocking the projectiles into the dirt. He then reached back and drew the sword from his back, pointing it toward the sky and declared, "I will grant my former comrade the highest honor I can bestow, in my capacity as the commander of the Ratatosker Mercenary Corps." He then closed the distance instantly and struck at Viego, but Viego managed to block it with his dagger, shouting with ecstatic laughter, "Yes, this is the exact moment I've been waiting for," using an old trick. Viego spun around to kick Jillian, but this time instead of blocking, Jillian leaned back slightly and evaded it. Viego followed up with a low thrust, but the opening was there. Jillian quickly stepped to the side, closing in like a flash and stabbing Viego in the back. He then raised his axe and said, "I will remember you. Captain of the 5th Squad Ratatosker Mercenary Corps, Viego Valanos." Seeing that everything had been settled, Ghislaine and Belinda immediately stepped forward and spoke up. "Great job out there. If we sell all the gear here, we'll make a serious bank, won't we?" Jillian then sheathed the sword and axe back onto his back, bowed respectfully to Ghislaine, and said, "I caused an unnecessary delay. I am deeply sorry." Ghislaine replied, "It's no big deal." Ghislaine stared intensely at him, secretly admiring Jillian. "He's even more extraordinary than I expected. When I first started as a mercenary after leaving home, the stories about Jillian I heard from my superiors helped me build the foundation to become the mercenary king. I'm so lucky I moved fast to secure such a reliable ally." Snapping out of her thoughts, Ghislaine asked, "Do you remember who that guy was?" Jillian held up the dagger he had taken from him and said, "He was an old comrade of mine." Ghislaine thought to herself, "An old comrade. I don't know what my own old comrades have been up to since before they met me. They must be living their own lives. But one day, we'll all cross paths again, won't we?"